Okay, grace and peace. Grace and peace. All right, Pretty Bird. Grace and peace. Grace and peace. Grace and peace. I'm gonna try to get through. I'm gonna try to get through some stuff. I want to share some stuff. We've been. Oh, I can't wait. Let me tell y'all something right now. Do me a favor. Type one if I'm sounding all right. I can't wait to get this mess around with this thing here. I can't wait to figure this thing out with blending these videos and putting this stuff together. Oh man, it's rough messing around with this YouTube being old. I'm gonna tell y'all that right now. I'm gonna play some stuff that a man and them shared with me. Talk about some stuff from yesterday. Y'all know Thunder jumped on, and y'all know when certain folk jump on, it's gonna be interesting. Let's just put it that way. And some things came up. And, he said, basically, he was saying that we better put some respect on Freemasonry because Freemasonry put in work. And I've shared that. We're going to get into this history. Oh, I've shared that before. And we're going to get into this history. We're going to get into all of that history. We heard countless people on YouTube talking about Freemasons and the role that they played in the formulating of this country. Some people have misinformation and they said every president is a Freemason. Everybody, you can't get a high position in this country if you were free. No, it's not none of that. But there were a good bit of signers of the Declaration of Independence. There were a few of them that were Freemasons. And we're gonna, y'all often know that I talk about the role of Freemasonry and how they were beefing and at war and back and forth, or should I say the Catholic Church were beefing with them. But secret society's been around from the gate. When you start talking about ancient Freemasonry, you start talking about ancient secret societies. The people would often say, especially people that study the occult and esoteric thought, and I'll give y'all the main scriptures that they use. But they said that there was some magi. A lot of people want to claim that magi were part of a secret society, a Babylonian, Persian, some type of mystery school that studied the occult and studied esoteric doctrine. And one of the main reasons that people say this, and the majority of the slides, I'm not doing that much talking. Everybody, we be getting it. We be doing some other stuff in the Patreon, but I'm gonna share the slides on the Patreon. I'm gonna freestyle some of it right here. Magi were Freemasons, or Magi were part of ancient secret societies. Others said that there were secret societies in West Africa. I don't like church people getting scared when they hear the word secret society, because this is some fear tactic. This is some fear mongering folk been running around here doing. Folk been having secret societies. Catholic were at war with the Knights Templar. Later on, some people say different orders were merged because the church was warring with them. They had to go underground. Some of them merged with Freemasonry and different orders. When people go into the history of Illuminati and all of that stuff. Now, when we talk about Freemasonry, when we talk about Kabbalah, when we talk about esoteric doctrine and secret societies, it's just like I tell y'all, it's the real church and the fake church. It's the real Rolex and it's the fake Rolex, the real AP and the fake AP. Just the same way with secret societies, you could hear people talking about they part of Rosicrucianism and they're involved in and it's a bootleg form. You would see a couple of people that's in Hollywood and they talking about in California. Oh, this is the order of the Rosicrucians and we study Kabbalah. This is a Kabbalistic. No, it's not. That's not what y'all do. That's not what y'all do. So we got the fake one and the real one and everything. We want to put that out there. I'm going to walk through this entire thing real slow because the role of secret societies are important. People going to get all excited. Oh, you right. You ain't lying about that. The Christian church and da-da-da-da-da. No. We're going to pump the brakes because we got some medicine for y'all. And I think one of the second or third videos I made 4 or 5 years ago, I said I was going to explain how people like Elijah Muhammad, everybody that was somebody back in the days, when they start talking about Boule and who's this and Alphas and Prince Hall, everybody that was somebody was involved in secret societies. First thing we don't want to be is confused with that. Let me show y'all one of them first. Let me show y'all one here. And it's funny because people would say after the Catholic Church went through so much to kill, to terrorize them, and King Philip and all of them, and the popes and them running amok to destroy secret societies, it's so crazy that they turned around and they formed their own secret society. Let me look on my phone. This is a secret society that's in the Catholic Church, and there's nothing wrong. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with secret societies. They've had secret societies. They've had group of older men in Africa and different places. When a kid get a certain age, he can come into the society, or he can be involved with the men. He'll go out in the woods with the man, and he'll come with the men, older men of the order of the tribe, and he'll go through some rituals and come back in. And because secret societies bind people together, that often troubles some people. Let me see if this screen could switch over. These are what you would call the Knights of Columbus. And the Knights of Columbus, let me see if I go on here, and let me see if I can pull this thing up. I think it's moving as we're talking, right? I'll go back. Let me see if this thing, click over here and see. All right, it's working. All right, y'all see this right here? Knights of Columbus. Knights of Columbus is what some people would consider a secret society, and is strictly part of the Catholic Church. You have to be a Roman Catholic, and there's certain other requirements, but this is something that was formed, and it was there. I mean, the Knights of Columbus, and it was there to help the people. That's what they told us. They said these secret societies, or these societies with secrets, are here to help the people. And they're always doing good stuff. Look at them. Knights of Columbus, automatically, Ukraine Solidarity Fund. They're on top of these things. They do good. Almost every single secret society on this planet, many would argue, have a front. This is the front work that we do. And they have a back thing that they study the ritual. They study the history. They study the order. Knights Templar. We're not going to this ain't Da Vinci Code doctrine. We're going to lay out straight facts right here. Jesuits, thank you. And so we have stuff like that. And it's always a problem when we get into them and we get into history, because most people got a history that goes, that they want to say that something is ancient. And I think I might touch on some of that esoteric with the Bible and how people would come on the scene. I talked to y'all about cooking Honeywell manuscripts from the 14th century, Regus poem from the 14th century, that proved that Freemasons were builders. They were actual builders in Europe. They built cathedrals and they built churches. Now, because of the book Stolen Legacy, we have a lot of people that say, wait a minute, and what the Moors teach in the Moor Science Temple, that Freemasonry belonged to Black people, and Freemasonry goes back to Africa. Freemasonry goes back to Egypt and the building of the temples and the mystery schools or secret societies in Babylon. I showed y'all the Genesis 6 conspiracy book, and how he was talking about how he believed that there was a good Freemasonry and a bad Freemasonry that came down. Adam had it, Enoch had it, and then Cain was of the wicked one, but he understood the mysteries. Later on, Nimrod split it. He put it in degree work, how you can, some people argue, how you can commune with the serpent for the knowledge of the tree. That's the degree work. Some claim the degree work is knowledge. That's the whole thing. And what you do with that knowledge, you do whatever you want to do, but you can tap into the spiritual realm. You can understand the science of the third eye, your higher self, seances, speaking to spirits, how to deal with herbs. Some argue that this was the doctrine or the religion of the Watchers, Deuteronomy 32, and they split them up among the nations, but all of the nations, all of the religions have a mystery school, and the mystery school is how to communicate with the gods. Later on, the Greeks called them gods. They were the same principalities, where we get Greek myths and legends and stories about gods coming down. People want to argue that those were the fallen ones, those were watchers. But in Christianity, we don't really teach that watcher stuff. We don't really teach that angels came down here. So that's not a doctrine that the Orthodox Church speaks on heavy, but it's heavy on the internet. So this is, and Mike Heiser discussed it, and he said, and many people argue that before 354, before Augustine of Hippo, Before Augustine came on the scene, the first century church largely believed in the interpretation. Mike Heiser and other people argue this, that they largely believed that of the story of watchers. And this is part of the reason that Paul was talking about women and covering their hair. And Mike Heiser argued, if you ask the average first century Jewish person, if you ask them about what brought sin into the world, they're not just going to tell you about the tree and Adam and Eve. They're going to tell you two stories. One is the tree and another one is wickedness of watchers. And we just know whatever, God was offended and he said, my spirit's going to only be with men 100, for his life is but 120. And we see numbers start coming down. And God was so upset, no matter something happened and God was upset. God said, I got to destroy mankind. Non-canonical works such as the Book of Enoch. Remember all of this stuff when we talk about secret societies. Every time a man Thunder jump on, and we talk about the Book of Mormon, yo, look at this Book of Mormon is okay. Why? Because these people are trained to look at everything. They trained to look at everything. They trained to talk religion. That's a generic form of a religion. They have a chaplain, they pray, they have an altar, all of that stuff, but it's a generic form of religion, so they can move among Muslims, they can move among Jews or Israelites, they can move among Christians, they can move among everybody. Remember, I started off telling y'all plenty people were out here saying that Freemasonry established the United States of America, and we know those were all European Freemasons. But behind the scenes, something else was going on. So we see all of this stuff and we see people having doctrines and stuff, and they're dealing with the Book of Enoch. And that brings us to some places, because everybody knows, not because of the Da Vinci Code, everybody knows right now that there are books that people talk about that's not in the Bible. That's part of the conspiracy. Da Vinci and people that want to talk about Constantine, they want to tell you that the church took books out of the Bible. Phil Valentine, he's on here quoting that Da Vinci Code stuff. Constantine and them, they had 80 gospels, and out of the 80 gospels, they picked 4. I should pull up that because I found a timestamp on that video with Bart Ehrman. Bart Ehrman, Elaine Pagels, that's a professional from Princeton, that's a professional in the Gospel of Thomas and the Gnostic text, that's a professional in that. They're gonna tell you, everybody from them to Gary Habermas, they're gonna all tell you, they're gonna say, yes, when we deal with the Gospels, the 4 Gospels that we have are among the earliest. Now, Elaine and a few people will argue out of all what we would call the Gospel of True, or what we would call Gnostic text that was found in 1945 in Nag Hammadi, that's in Egypt. So what we call Nag Hammadi Library, that's totally different from Apocrypha. So they would all tell you that maybe out of all of those books are 2nd century, 3rd century, all of them books come later on. Maybe we can find, and some would argue, we can find the Gospel of Thomas at a very, very early time. When we say early, we're talking about 98, 110. Some people would argue that. And that puts it around the time of dedicated, closing the Revelation, the whole canon and everything being acknowledged happening in the 1st century. Even when we start dealing with letters in the early 2nd century, First Clement and all of that stuff, and other shepherds and all them other books that come later on. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later on. But when we're dealing with this, I got to try to go through it real fast so everybody can get a little bit here, a little bit there. So they believe that this wickedness took place. So there's people that's involved in secret societies. They read everything. They don't care when the church tells you that's the canon, don't read that. And I can't lie, there's a lot of y'all in here that got a secret society spirit. Y'all hard-headed. Now I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. Why it's not easy is because people know better now. I tell people what the church told me, and I tell people we share this, we rides with the 66. But now, because the Book of Enoch is out there, because people have computers in their hand, all they got to do is look through their phone to 66. Wait a minute. Ain't the church in Ethiopia part of Christendom? Ain't they part of the body of Christ? Oh, they up in the 80s. Wait a minute. How come it's 66 over here? And them folk got 72, them folk got 81, and these folk done went all the way to 88. Wait a minute now. So now explaining it is a little different, because people know some things that a lot of people didn't know 40 years ago, 30 years ago. The Book of Enoch been over there. When Bruce brought the book over here, they got translated in 77. But now everybody knows that the canon is not the same. Now, because a lot of people are conspiratorial and they don't have knowledge of the difference between Nag Hammadi and the DSS, or what we would call the Dead Sea Scrolls, because they don't know what the Apocrypha is and what the gospel of truth is, or the gospel to the Hebrews, because they don't know the difference in the books and they don't trust the church, they grab anything and they read anything. That's one of the problems. And then we run into people like this. Let me show y'all some of this video. Let me show y'all some of this. I normally start off with some TikTok. Let me show y'all some of this right here. Then we run into some stuff like this. And stuff like this causes even a greater problem for those that are in the body. Causes a greater problem.
In Hebrew and in code, as was the tradition. Thus, Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible in Hebrew and in code, as was the tradition. Thus, every story and name contained in the books of Moses hides a deeper meaning. As it says in the mystical Hebrew book, the Zohar, the narratives of the doctrine are its cloak. The simple look only at the garment that is. Upon the narrative of the doctrine, more they know not. The instructed, however, see not merely the cloak, but what the cloak covers. The Bible is symbolic. The characters and events of the Bible are a cloak that veils the real message. The inner knowledge has been hidden, or in the case of Christianity, rejected entirely. The Bible, like all great religious books, has been interpreted literally. Even Jesus taught both a public and secret doctrine. To you it hath been given to know the secrets of the reign of the heavens, and to these it hath not been given. Those who received the secret teachings were persecuted and forced to take the knowledge underground. As a result, the modern church has inherited merely the cloak. In addition, the Bible has undergone repeated editing by those without any knowledge of its secrets. Even though the modern Bible has been greatly disfigured, it is still infused with the ancient secret doctrine. However, the many levels of meaning hidden in the Hebrew letters are not visible in the modern language versions of the Bible. For example, the very first words in the Bible in Hebrew.
All right, let me stop right there. I don't even want to go on any further. So people are out here introducing esoteric doctrine, and they're saying that this was the true doctrine. If we understand the history of Gnosticism and other things, and we understand that this is they're arguing that this is the true doctrine and that the church is confused. And then they use verses like that Freemasons use verses like that there was a secret teaching, secret societies. I just don't want to say Freemasonry alone. Blavatsky taught it, other people taught it, that there was a secret doctrine and a public doctrine. There's pastors that are Freemasons, there's pastors that's occultists, there's pastors that's mystic, and they studied the secret doctrine. Jesus and his apostles, Jesus taught his apostles the secret doctrine. Now, the problem is that when you get into the secret doctrine, if you're not led by the Spirit of God, if you don't know if you don't have a full grasp from the beginning what happened, that God came and God had a doctrine with a tree, and that tree was life. And they had instructions, don't touch nothing else. Then a serpent appeared. And a serpent had a doctrine. But he came in the form of questions, asking questions, throwing stuff out there, making you doubt the word of God. That's how come some people will say, oh, once the people come around, oh, this is the serpent coming around. This is a serpent doctrine because you got us questioning the word of God. You're throwing things out there that's troubling people. That's troubling their soul in the form of questions. You're attempting to introduce another doctrine. That's how come doctrine is so important. Not unity of the black man. Not, oh, these white folk in the public. That's how come doctrine is so important, because another doctrine has always been around. Why? I don't know. What a lot of people talk about why God put the other tree in the eye. Listen, I'm not that deep. That's above my pay grade, but I know another doctrine has been around, and we got to be careful when we're dealing with another doctrine. So people are out here pushing that there is another doctrine, and that doctrine is what the church is trying to hide from you. In our community, Bobby Hammett, and I'm going to talk about Malachi Z. York and everybody, and then y'all will understand before we get to Philadelphia, before we get to Richard Allen and the AME Church, and how strong Prince Hall is, because we got to admit it. We said Freemasons were heavy in this country. George Washington didn't want to fight. He rocking out with Lafayette. He wanted to get on the front line with those brothers that are his brothers in the lodge. Forget political party and this and that. I'm going to bang out with my brothers in the lodge, and that was George Washington's thing, and we see it with other people. That's how come later on, by the time we get to the Civil War and all of this stuff, was people like, well, who is this guy, Albert Pike, and how he a Confederate? Wait a minute, you got a monument in Washington, D.C., and you was a Confederate? People not thinking. But we're going to explain when people move together as brothers. Forget doctrine, we brothers. That man, the doctrine is secondary. This is part of the order and how people move. So people start receiving a doctrine. They start receiving a teaching that comes from the serpent. He said, no. God knows that the day you do that, you shall be like God. And because of that, and because people have this influence, their minds and how they approach the scripture, they're approaching God's word forward because of the serpent. Now, it's not just the serpent alone, but because sin entered the world through one man, meaning Adam, we all have what's known as a sinful nature. Now, some people do it willingly, some people do it unknowingly, but people approach the Bible and they put their own doctrine in the Bible. And when you're reading into the text, what's that word? Because it's good to get into these words. What we try to do to understand the text, we try to exegete the text. That means to draw out. That's where we get the English word exit from, to draw out. What is this thing saying? What is the text really saying? And then there's another term. The other term is eisegesis. When you isolate the text, you want to isolate one verse and make it say what you want to say, and you read your thoughts into it. You read another doctrine into it. John 8:44, you are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your fathers you would do. Jesus taught that the white man is the devil and the black man is God. We got no beginning, but the white man's beginning is 6,000. Jesus ain't said that. You just isolated John 8:44 and giving me serpent doctrine, giving me another doctrine that's foreign to the text. You're reading your thoughts into the text. Now, recently, some other things came up. And it's narcissistic, not eisegesis, not exegesis, but narcissistic. And this is important because we got folk whole time that's doing this. Narcissistic is a word of fairly recent coinage that has not yet found its way into dictionaries. When people use the word, they are referring to a process of interpreting scripture in a highly personal and even selfish way. Folks seeing the Bible and everything in the Bible is about them. When I study the Bible and I understand the occult and Jesus came to teach me about my higher self. So you got people saying, oh, the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, the whole Bible is about me. The whole Bible is about black people. The whole Bible is about Israel. If Jesus had searched the scriptures, I'm in the book right now. For in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. If you don't got the center of the Bible right, you're going to be off. And a lot of people's reading the Bible saying, well, the Bible are codes that talk to me to show me I'm God and dealing with my higher self. So right now I'm Jesus on the cross. I can't cut my hair. I got to burn some sage and I got to fast because I'm on the cross right now, but the Christ is getting ready to be birthed inside of me. So everything they read in the Bible is me, all over the scripture. And that's an occult way to read scripture. That's an esoteric way to understand the Bible. And now the question is, are there different levels to understanding the Bible? Did Jesus teach a secret doctrine? Matter of fact, before I even go to that, let me go to some other people. So we can play some of this. If we're gonna get into it, we're gonna get straight into it, and we're gonna make this thing do what it do. We're gonna see what these folk are talking about And I'm going to show y'all some people. Now we're going back. Now remember, we're going to Joseph. I started off, I said I was going to play that video with Joseph in Egypt and how Christians and how other people have lied. Nobody needs to lie for God. Nobody need to make up no professors. Nobody need to do nothing. Don't make up no archaeological. Don't lie for God. Let the word stand for itself. But a lot of people don't want to do that. Let me go to some of this stuff. I'm going to start off with, let me start off with this. Let me see. Let me start off. Let me see which one. Let me start off with this brother right here first. I'm going to play a little bit of this and then we're going to talk.
I chose this topic tonight. I was talking with some brothers in regards to masonry. What is it? And then I got to looking at it and doing my own little research into masonry and their knowledge and just a whole lot of stuff. And what I had in one of my books, what I've come to find is that the ancient Mason is no more than a magi. Well, you may say, what is a magi? A magi specializes in acquiring knowledge that would enable a man to live to his highest, to make the most in making his most spiritual progress. So in Masonry, we call it a progressive science. And if you indulge yourself in science, you will see exactly what I'm saying in that fellowcraft degree. So when you think of ancient Masonry, what I'm finding is that it's more so of the magi, the one who acquires knowledge that would enable him to reach his highest spiritual level. Okay, and I found that in a book called Ancient Masonry, and I find that it's a real good book. I've had it before on the show, and I've shared it before. But the more I indulged myself in that book, the more I found out that it got even deeper than where I thought even I wanted to go, in a sense. And I'm finding that it breaks down a couple of things. At first, it's mentioned about the magi, and then I thought about the birth of Christ and the star that shines so bright, that bright and morning star, which led the magi 3 by way of the desert, supposedly on camelback, to this manger where this infant is born.
So as you go on, you're going to hear that people are practicing certain things. This guy here, this is he's part of, y'all see that right there, John G. Jones Research Lodge, not a regular lodge, Research Lodge. Last night, boy, it's a bunch to get into. He's part of John Jones Research Lodge. I'm going to pull up who John Jones is, and we're going to talk about secret societies, like I said, going all the way back, and certain charges just made against him. But these guys are heavy. He's been on for a long time. Degree work is what they do. They deal with the whole esoteric side of it, and they deal with all of the degrees in the lodge. A lot of times you get in the lodge, you pass, enter, and raise, you become a master mason, you jump in 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 degrees. A lot of guys out here, they got 32 degrees in this thing. They've been in it for a few years, but they haven't worked through every single degree and researched every single degree. And that's important because there's elements of what we would call pagan, and pagan is just before the Israelite religion came. Pagan rituals and teachings in the degree work, and a lot of what that do is teach someone how to be an ancient magi, teach someone how to be a wizard, teach someone how to connect with the spirits, teach someone how to connect with your higher self. How can you transform yourself into God? So the whole doctrine in the book, the whole teaching, and how these people handle the text is, how can I make myself better? That's what Freemasonry tell you. They don't tell you they take a bum or drunk off of the street and clean them up. Freemasonry says that they take good men and make them better. So they have a doctrine for good men to make good men better. Now we're going here for a reason, because we got to first establish why so many people in the church and in the black community, just like among Europeans, how so many people have used this thing that we call craft, that we call masonry, in different communities and how they've been all prominent people in our neighborhoods. From the very, very foundation of this country, in the background, there's been people. Prince Hall was a freed black man. Him and 14 other men received a chart. Wait a minute. Y'all become Masons in 1775? When this nation became a country? No, I'm stop with that now, because y'all don't know they were free black people. Now, wait a minute. How can these people be free? That's a whole nother thing. We're gonna make sure we deal with a lot of history. Let's put it that way. It's too much to play for me to be stopping in 2 minutes.
And they bring this infant, the Christ or the Messiah or Jesus, whatever name you want to use. They bring him frankincense or cloth, silk. They bring him the things that he's going to need. And as these three magi's embark upon this journey, they don't go back to Pharaoh. They don't go back to him. However, what I found is that when they finally get there, I'm checking out the items that they're leaving. These are very expensive items. So when people tell me that Christ was poor and is born in a manger, and I'm like looking at what these magi's, these three individuals are dropping off, they're nowhere near poor. That is just from the reading. And I encourage everyone to do their own research, to do their own reading. Culture can be a rabbit hole. Now, I often tell you should drop crumbs along the way so you find your way back. You know what I mean?
Y'all heard what he said, right? I'm gonna just leave it alone. A lot of these doctrines are rabbit holes. Being that I've been in a whole bunch of these, so I tell folks, listen, don't waste your time in the rabbit hole. But there's something that make people. Well, I heard about this, brother. I was listening about the Anunnaki, and then I was reading something in Genesis, and this guy was a high scholar back in the days. He died. I said, what's his name? He said Zechariah. I said, get away from me.
So this is a big shout out to all of my brothers who are of the 33rd, 32nd consistories.
Thank you, brother.
I just want to send you a big shout out. Hope you're doing well this Monday. So we're gonna get right into it. Brother Alex, how you doing? The three wise men.
And you see that? And don't tell him there was three either. That's excellent point right there. Even when you start dealing, we got the whole thing confused because we look at movies and iconography and the shepherds and the wise men and the angel all together. Clearly, Matthew tells us that he was already a young boy. He was about 18 years old. It took him a while, 18 months old. So he was a young child by the time they came into the house. The manger scene is a whole different scene. So Luke is showing us one thing. And because out of the four gospels, only Matthew talk about, him when he was little, and only Luke talks about him when he was little. Mark starts off, he's 30 years of age, coming to get baptized by John, because Mark is written by the Romans, and Mark is an action gospel. Romans don't care where you come from. They just want to care what you did. That's how come you could even be black and become an emperor in Rome. They don't care. They want to know action. So Mark don't talk about Jesus' childhood. Mark just jumps off Jesus being about 30 years of age and getting to the whole thing, and shows a lot of actions. So we see words like immediately and suddenly, because it's an action book because of the audience that Mark wrote to. And that's why we do this. Luke is different. Luke wrote to, he was written primarily with some Greeks in mind. He go back to the original man. So instead of like Matthew going back to Abraham for the Hebrews, that's the first book, Matthew written for the Hebrews, but Luke written for the Greeks. Luke go back to Adam because the Greeks, Aristotle and Plato and Socrates, they into the original man. So they went back. So Luke goes all the way back to Adam. But I'm not going to be all over the place. That's just a little side note right here. We got to get into some of this ritual stuff because we just getting started.
I have a better definition than I have as far as the magi is concerned. So if anybody want to call in tonight, that number is 619-985-1184 is the number to call in tonight for tonight's show. We're talking about the ancient Mason, and we're looking at what, those ancient Masons, before 1721, 1717, 1847, before any of those dates as we know it today, as we talk about speculative and operative Masons, let's look at those ancient Masons.
Those people didn't call themselves Masons. What he's talking about when we start talking about Cook, that Regis poem from the 1400s and 1717, when they had the first Grand Lodge in Europe. That's like the mother church of the denomination, like the head. Where the head of the Kojic from? Y'all down there in Memphis. Like that's like the headquarters of the Kojic or the headquarters of the Baptist Church. When Freemasons in Europe that were builders, they were building cathedrals. That's what it originally was. They were real carpenters. They were real stone masons. Later on, we have a writing, I think, what's the guy named Ashmole? And Ashmole in his diary wrote that I think he said he got raised in the lodge. So now we got aristocrats speaking on the craft of masonry. So something happened with the builders in Europe, being around the Pope and them, being around rich folk and them, the regular smart guys that knew how to build cathedrals and castles. And they had a union. They call them a builder's guild. They had a union. Something happened, and the aristocrat princes and educated rich folk that were not real bricklayers, stone cutters, and carpenters, aristocrats started coming in and mingling with these people and teaching moral and esoteric stories using builders' tools like a level and a plumb line and a square and stuff like that. And they started mingling with these guys. That's the historical evidence that we have of Freemasonry. Now, because of books like Stolen Legacy, we have other people. That brings us to this John G. Guy right here, and other people within Freemasonry. Now, today in America, that's been going on for a long time. You have something that's known as irregular lodges or clandestine lodges. Somebody asked Thunder yesterday. Somebody said, "Yo, Thunder, did y'all, me and Prince Hall people, did y'all have to go to white folk to get a charter?" And Prince Hall was here. He was here in America. He was here in Boston as a free black man underneath a white man named Hall, and the man let him go. And he was up here as a free black man, because he was pushing. Listen, if black folk, if y'all come and join the military and help fight for the country, that these white folk won't let y'all go. So he amped some other people, him and some other free people. They were heavy on some abolitionist stuff. They were heavy on help fight, get in the military. And he asked some white Masons over here to make him a Mason, and they didn't want to make him a Mason, so he had to write away. He had to write away to Europe, and then later on in Europe and Ireland, some folk. Now, y'all remember that for later on when we talk about history. In Ireland, some white folk turned around and gave him a charter. The day that they talk about is a special day in Freemasonry, that the Grand Lodge and all this other stuff with the white folk was St. John's Day. That's June 24th. And they told these other guys, well, y'all can do y'all thing. You can't make other people Masons. You can't open up no lodges, but you can bury people that die in Freemasonry, and you can march on St. John. You got you can just do a little bit of stuff. Later on, they turn around and give them a full-blown charter and say, listen, you can open up lodges. So they had lodge number 1 up there in Boston, and they called it lodge number 459. After 459, he started opening up other Masonic churches, calling them Masonic lodges. He started opening up other Masonic lodges, and in Pennsylvania. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, some other people that already came up that were Freemasons, they started discussing some things because they like, listen, these white folk got to treat us right. So these were the first ones in the country. We got to admit, Freemasons were the first ones in the country fighting for educational rights. He's riding away to the Senate. And listen, we need schools for these free black kids so they can be taught. When the white folks said there's not enough money and they keep giving him the runaround, he didn't want to just kill white folk and run amok. He wanted to do everything through the legal system. He wanted to do everything right. But when he saw they was acting up, and open up his own house, I'm going to start educating people. So they were the first educators. They were the first one using paperwork to go to court. Now, and all of this is important. So people are looking, I'm like, yo, these dudes are straight. They real leaders. They're about it. They're doing it. As time went on, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones, other people that are moving with him, they said that we want these white folks start treating us good. Because white folk in the Methodist church, white folk, you can come to church with them, but you got to be up in the balcony. So what they do is people that don't want to, they don't want to go too far, but they want to like, listen, we got to start making some moves. So what did they turn around and do? They turn around and said, yo, altar call time, communion time. Well, we finna flood that altar. We're going to jump on that altar. Whatever they do, they do. And then they got down there, and white people, the white trustee tried to grab them by the arm and pick them up. They all got up and they marched out of the church. Black people. Prince Hall started the AME Church, that mother church you call down there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Freemasonry is deep and strong. When that happened, the whole city is turned out. Oh, black folk have the first institution. That wasn't the first church. Now remember that other church with the pews down there in Savannah? They were 17. What year that was 1777? Y'all know I'm freestyling right now. Got to get my dates together. Put that date down there for that church we was all beefing about them pews. They was Africans too. They was part of that congregation that built that church. But the first whole full-blown denomination called the AME Church was birthed from Prince Hall Freemasons. So the black church was around, but the first black denomination. So now remember, because we're dealing with the subject, did Freemasonry start the black church here in America? Or is Freemasonry controlling the black church here in America? Let's go back to the esoteric, because some of y'all may be a little offended. And that's just one denomination, but that's just something that we have to look at and we have to understand some things. So with this guy here, they have what's known as, the guy started saying, and they asked under yesterday, they said, yeah, 17, thank you. They said you had to right away. So Prince Hall and them doing right, we got to right away to the Grand Lodge. That's the mother lodge. White Freemasons over here treating them kind of funny. So when the guys from Europe said, listen, we going back home, they went home and then he rode away. And then the Irish people turned around and gave him a charter. So black people are down here doing their thing. There were other people that George, matter of fact, I'm going to pull this thing up so we can read it in case, because this freestyle will make people think that I'm running around here playing games. George G. Jackson, he was born up here in Ithaca, New York, but he ended up going to Chicago. He's steeped in Freemasonry. He's steeped in Prince Hall. That's what we call Prince, P-H-A, Prince Hall. Prince Hall Masons are the Masons that come from the guy Prince Hall in Boston. They had Lodge number 1. They gave him his charter. They called it Lodge number 459, and they started calling the whole thing Prince Hall Masonry because he put the paperwork in. He was the leader, so they named the whole movement after him, and that's considered black Freemasons. White Freemasons now don't recognize them. They looking at them like all of y'all ain't writing exact, but he got paperwork and he showed paperwork. Listen, I got a charter from Europe. I got a charter from the Mother Lodge. So other people later on, way later on, other people started saying, yo, because of stolen legacy or because of that spirit and looking at different secret societies, they said, listen, before the Moors, before these Europeans had it, we had Freemasonry in Africa. So it got to be an African thing. Why you got to go to white folk to get a charter? So now they start saying, so now you got Prince Hall people looking down on some other people, saying, oh, y'all are regular, you clandestine, you don't got the authority. They laughing at them like, we don't need authority from the white man when Freemasonry come from God. And Adam and Eve had it. Enoch had it. The wise men had it. This is a holy secret doctrine. This is what people, now these guys think they Christians. They Prince Hall to them. These folk going to church. George Washington, remember, he a Freemason too. He don't go to church as much. He became a Freemason he got entered, passed, and raised in the lodge in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So when they see that he's popular and he jumping Arlington, another lodge asked him to come. They building Washington, D.C. Freemasons coming from all over the world because a lot of people don't know how to do this thing. And later on, we get a guy named Banneker and some other people, different color Freemasons from different parts of Europe, different parts of the world, but they all got this building trade and these signs and these symbols, and they moving together. Let me keep playing this, and then we're going to go to who's who in Freemasonry, and you tell me if they just been influential in the church or these been bosses in the black community from the gate.
Groups those secret societies that was around long before Freemasonry came along, and they were there. Today we know them as Freemasons, but long before that, they were called something else, you know. And we know by the study of Scripture that even Christ taught to the public, but he taught his disciples differently. There was a different teachings between the public and disciples.
So now in Kabbalah and everything, we got a secret doctrine right now. That's what that guy said. Oh, there was something coded. Y'all don't understand the codes in the Bible. So everybody right now, the world over, is pushing a secret doctrine. You got regular Islam and you got Sufism. They play the music and they spin around and dance like they ballerinas till they get into the spirit. I'll talk about dancing and the spirit and just getting into a frenzy or doing things, spinning and jumping and rolling till the spirit get in you, and a bunch of them even speak in tongues. I shouldn't have said that part.
So we know that. We also know that if you would, you know, in this particular book I'm talking about tonight, Ancient Masonry, we know that the Magi's were known as knowledge seekers, or those individuals who acquired knowledge. And the way they passed this knowledge down was through not just word of mouth, but actually written down so that those in that circle would have this knowledge. It was not something that was given to the common person. You had to be brought in order to receive it, only because when I'm finding out, everybody wasn't ready for it. People claim they're ready for something, and then when they get it, it's like so shocking to them till they have to back up and reassess the whole thing. So when I think of ancient masonry, I'm looking at the Magi tonight. So if you got any comments or anything you want to speak on tonight in regards to that, please join us. 619-985-1184 is tonight's show number. So give us a call and let's talk about the Magi's.
Now they're getting ready to get into ritual and witchcraft or magic, and how things are similar with the workings of the lodge. They deal with a heavy esoteric element because they deal with guys that are Shriners that are higher degreed in this thing, and they look at it esoterically. So y'all are going to hear a lot of stuff that people are pushing other places. Let's just put it that way. Let me get into some of this right here. And y'all tell me what y'all think. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel. This guy got some stuff out here. Let's share some of these videos that he mingled together, that he put together, some decent work. So I said we're gonna check some of this out right here. Fair use. Tell me where they at right now, historically, where they at.
What does Booker T. Washington, Thurgood Marshall, Richard Pryor, Sugar Ray Robinson, Nelson Mandela, Elijah Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan, Scottie Pippen, Shaquille O'Neal, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Medgar Evers, Nat King Cole, Reverend Calvin Butts, James Clyburn, Benjamin Crump, Elijah Cummings, Don King, Roland Martin, Michael Jordan, Ricky Smiley, Tom Joyner, Bill Cosby, and Steve Harvey all have in common besides being black men. Well, if you looked at the title of this video, I guess you have figured out that they are all Prince Hall Freemasons. Trust me, the list goes on and on.
Now let me stop right here, because a lot of people would because I just want people to know that all this stuff could be facts checked right here. Let me go to this other thing just in case, because boy, the haters are folk. When you start folk get to getting mad right here. Where is that other ad for a minute? Let me go right here for a minute and see if we know some names. This is something. This is Warfield Lodge number 44. A free and accepted Mason Prince Hall affiliate from Clarksville, Tennessee. I'm going to go all the way down. Brother Charles Wesley is the author, History of Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of Ohio. And they got a few names here. Brother Garrett Morgan, the inventor of the traffic light. Robert Abbott, the founder of the Chicago Defenders. Richard Allen, founder of the AME Church. The AME Church is largely a Prince Hall church. Delta, aka what we call Divine Nine Church. Now, nobody's saying they have not put in work. Them, and Baptists and number 2, they have been in the forefront of what we would call the civil rights movement. They been in the forefront of all of this stuff. So we got to make sure that we lay everything out on the table. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, well, doing good stuff don't mean nothing. It's the devil. And we'll get into that later on, because Brother Thunder said, well, show me the devil in this. And, part of the doctrine is that a lot I've met Masons and they'll charge you, well, where did you get that from? And it's going to go back to the white man is the devil. Mackie, when you say devil or Lucifer and lifting Lucifer up, Albert Pike, those are all European Masons. And a lot of them didn't even acknowledge. I'm going to tell you about Albert Pike and John G. Jones. And as a matter of fact, I got to talk about that too. But that's a whole nother thing. We got to show and prove this stuff. Alexander T. August, first African-American to head a U.S. hospital. Marion Barry, y'all remember him with the mayor of D.C., Count Basie. James Bias, founder of Philadelphia Vigilante Committee. Pronunciation. Henry Blair, first black to receive U.S. patent. James Hubert. Let me see who else we know here. Edward Williams, first black to publish a novel. All of these people, y'all know Nat. Who's this? I got Nat King Cole, a singer. Y'all know who this is? Ozzie Davis. I think Ozzie Davis. They did Malcolm funeral. Him and got Malcolm body ready. Him and Dr. Ben back in the days. But y'all know Ruby D. Ozzie Davis and Ruby D. Martin R. Delaney, first black. All right, wait a minute. We got a few people right here. Well, W.E.B. This comes from the lodge. This comes from these guys and their research. Don King, Thurgood Marshall. Who else? Richard Pryor. I already mentioned him. Everybody that's Charlie Rangel. Rangel's still alive, right? The old and new Booker T. Washington. Everybody that's somebody. Nobody. The dude from Johnson. Y'all remember what's that book? Ebony Magazine. Everybody, they would always have who's who in Prince Hall, all of them, who's who and all of that with the secret societies. They always kept it in the forefront. If you grew up remembering Jet Magazine and Ebony Magazine and all that stuff, they always showed us who was who in the whole, not just the church, in the whole community. The whole thing is a lot of those people that came into that order, they were saying, listen, they're Christians. York Rite is considered a whole Christian rite. There are, when people start saying, no Freemason can pray in Jesus' name. Oh, wait a minute, you got to be careful. You got whole lodges talking about their whole Christian lodges. Now, we can argue that. Nobody defending them. We're going to argue that, but we got to make sure that we're truthful when we're approaching the doctrine and what's being said. All right. Tell me y'all saw that. Did I share all of that? All right. Maybe, let me see. Here we go. All right. Back to this now, because there's some charges. Back to this, and we'll just see what's what.
Right now, currently, we are in the month where America likes to say they are celebrating Black history. But while they speak on our history, their truth is always edited. Like, if I told the story of Black people in America and left out their time in captivity being slaves, people would aggressively accuse me of leaving out or editing our history. Yet after slavery, the story of Black people in America has become seriously edited. And the sad part is there's very little fuss about it because most people just don't know. We basically went from slaves to segregated to fighting for civil rights to having prominent Black individuals in all facets of the country to now people claiming there is equality. That is the story that most people want to believe.
Change has come to America.
But the truth is that this version of history is extremely edited. There is something that must be understood in modern-day Black history, particularly in America. Without it, you miss a very big side of history that will always leave you blinded and confused and led astray into rebellion. There is no modern-day Black history without talking about Prince Hall Freemasons. Mostly everything that we know today in our Black American culture has been cultivated and steered by Prince Hall Freemasons. They are literally an unseen hand of Black America. So we can no longer just go through the cycle of speaking about Black History Month and not discussing the real shakers of our Black history. Like, we'll talk about an individual, but who they are and what they were a part of, we love to leave out. We all need to know about Prince Hall Freemasonry. Let's begin. So a few weeks back, I did a video about what is Freemasonry. If you do not understand what Freemasonry is, I suggest you watch that video. This video is not about Freemasonry. Once you understand their structure, symbols, who they serve, and why, you can then on your own form your own educated opinion about the religion/organization. The unfortunate truth is that too many people form their opinions without this information. That information is important to know, because if you do happen to step on this side of the information and then recognize how much influence Freemasons have had on our culture and way of life, how many men of our society have been Freemasons, the information may be used as a recruitment tool for them because they frame it all as accomplishments and stories of empowerment. But understanding Freemasonry and then understanding the true bloodline of many of these men who became Prince Hall Freemasons, it moves from a vantage point of empowerment and success to now seeing people just plainly selling out. But our history today, unfortunately, has made heroes out of those we should look at as villains.
Yeah, and I'm gonna talk about that Boule thing too. Perhaps Martin Luther King was made a Mason on site like Ronald Reagan. I don't know. I know his pops definitely was. His pops definitely was. Wasn't King of Alpha?
But again, this video is not about Freemasonry. We need to discuss the hidden role the religion/organization called Freemasonry has had on our society as a whole, because whether you know it or not, Prince Hall Freemasonry is a backbone of the Black community. And even if you are not part of the Black community, you must understand there is an edited side of the story that we are being told. I'm sure not aware that in Black America, since the ending of the Civil War, Freemasonry was used as a tool for cultural improvement and advancement. It is what Blacks in America clung to as a source of equality, freedom, and justice. There wouldn't be a civil rights movement in America without Freemasonry. And your initial thought is to cheer them on for it. But what if these goals and movements were less about equality and freedom and more about rebellion, walking away from our Creator, and a different form of slavery? We'll get to that. Either way, like I said earlier, the story of Black America cannot be accurately and fully told without recording the impact that Prince Hall Freemasonry had upon Black society. Behind nearly every pivotal turn in the history of Black America, Prince Hall Freemasons may be found, especially in the Black church. The foundation of Prince Hall Freemasonry was laid between 1775 and 1847. On March 6, 1775, 15 civilians were initiated in the Freemason Grand Lodge of Ireland, Lodge number 441, which had a lodge chartered in Boston, Massachusetts. These 15 men were Blacks from the Boston area. One of them was named Prince Hall. Now, this is important to understand and note. It wasn't the American Freemasons who initiated these men, but the lodges in England. So it wasn't like racism didn't apply to these men. In 1776, during the War for Independence between America and England, the Black men, including Prince Hall, formed themselves into a lodge which was called African Lodge Number 1, under the leadership of Prince Hall. There is a 300-page book known as Prince Hall's Letter Book, which provides much of the records about all of this and how the African lodges grew and spread. African Lodge, under leadership of Prince Hall, was held in high regard in the general community, aside from the racists who opposed them because of their color and race. The lodge was particularly attractive to leaders in the community. It showed a different type of Black man that was not seen in this country before then. Hall then established 2 new lodges, one in Providence, Rhode Island, and the other in Philadelphia. Remember Philadelphia, because they are important for another subject. African Lodge of Boston continued to meet and to grow in numbers, and Prince Hall remained its master until his death on December 4th, 1807. Prince Hall was succeeded as master of African Lodge by Nero Prince. It is claimed that in 1808, representatives of the three lodges, African Lodge of Boston, African Lodge of Philadelphia, and African Lodge of Providence, met together and organized an African Grand Lodge with Nero Prince as the Grand Master. And they changed the name from African Lodge to Prince Hall Grand Lodge in memory of Prince Hall. And they started expanding, adding more lodges. And this was the foundation of what is now Prince Hall Freemasonry. The men were considered equals amongst their white brothers. They were barred entrance as members in the great majority of white lodges. And this was a huge reason why expansion was necessary. The lodge started to be used as an institution of union and social uplift in the Black community. In a Masonic-run country, joining this institution seemed like a way of uplifting the Black community and finding ties with their oppressors. They joined the great plan to serve the architect or God of Freemasonry. And the truth is that that goal and alliance in the end superseded the hate because of their race or bloodline, because it was a clear declaration that they were on their side. But it's not like they didn't deal with racism.
Well, I don't know, Jay, on that one right there. Some people may want to argue you on that one right there. Y'all were operative before speculative?
To a great extent, the Prince Hall Masons were isolated from white masonry, although they seem to have learned and emulated many of the customs and usages of the neighboring lodges and grand lodges, so that they may speak in general terms of American Masonic practice, without having to distinguish between Prince Hall and mainstream when comparing other countries. The foundation that Prince Hall laid was the beginning of the rise of the Negro in America. Yet this story is seldom told in our history books and in our schools. I wonder why, if it was such a noble and admirable thing. But I digress. There's a lot of details on how they grew and spread their membership around the country, but the details are inconsequential. They grew and gathered Black men into the Masonic traditions. Here's the thing that needs to be understood. At this point, we'll see the foundation of where confusion comes in the Black community. If you take a look at the Black community today and you see leadership, you'll see it in many different types of roles: business leaders, civil rights leaders, etc. But it was not always so. Masons were in power and they had a problem with even recognizing the Prince Hall Masons. Then it's obvious that moving into those high roles in American society would take some time. So what did the Prince Hall Masons do? Because they were still leaders in their community. There was a huge attachment to the Black church. And if you ever want to understand how things are so bad in the church today, you should know that from the start, when the foundations of the church in America were being built, it was already contaminated.
And he's talking about the Black church now. He's talking about the Black church now. We're going to stop. What are your thoughts on this right here? They're trying to say there's a spirit that came into church messing around with Freemasonry. Now, the church was around. Y'all got oh man, what's that other one I just ordered? Put the name of out of many, put the name of that Bantu book in there, Brown.
The Black churches across the country were being run by Freemasons. In my research, it is said that it is normal routine for the opening and closing prayers in a Prince Hall Lodge or social function to be ended in the name of Jesus.
Now, because there were a lot of yes, he's not. All right, we good. Now this guy here is a Israelite. This is an Israelite research channel right here. Okay, y'all got to keep that in mind. Who's giving the information? Let's keep going.
And to include other exclusively Christian phrases during the prayer. It is said that only the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of California practices a craft, that means Masonic, ritual, which actually mentions Jesus. But it is a normal routine for Christian hymns to be sung during the opening and closing and during degree ceremonies and social affairs. It would not be unusual to hear or read of a Prince Hall Grand Master referring to the Prince Hall Masonic Order as a Christian organization, or members of the fraternity to say that only a good Christian can make a good Mason. Prince Hall Masons carry on in their religious manner while at the same time they claim to adhere to Mackey's 25 landmarks and to the ancient charges of Anderson's Constitution. The 19th and 21st of Mackey's landmarks and the first of...
Hold on, where Jay at? And let me ask you a question, Jay. Mackey, them your brothers? Mackey your brother? Reverend Anderson, that's your brother? We gotta see.
Anderson's charges concerning God and religion clearly speak of Freemasonry being a fraternity that is adaptable to man, regardless of his personal religion. And no Prince Hall Grand Lodge claims in its constitution to be an exclusively Christian Grand Lodge. I mean, there are some non-Christian members, mainly Muslims, from the Nation of Islam.
What year is that poem? What year is that?
Some of you are Masons, Shriners, studying the secret wisdom of God in your lodges. But your lodge is a little different from the white folks' lodge.
And they are accommodated, at least to the extent of being able to use their own book of faith at the altar. It's ironic because in his book, The Secrets of Freemasonry, Elijah Muhammad writes, a Mason cannot be a good Mason unless he knows the Holy Quran and follows its teachings.
Oh, we're going to pull Steve out when we get to the boule.
This book is the only book that will make a true Mason. Oh, but I don't want to get off track. The point I'm making is that Masons have completely infiltrated the Black church. This is not giving credibility to the other churches in America, because they have been infiltrated as well. And for many of them, I believe they're even easier to tell. But this is something very specific to the Black church, and it must be known because the Black church has always been the staple of our community. And there are things that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents just did not know because it was being hidden from them. Now, if they actually followed the word and aligned it with what they were seeing from the pulpits and organizations, perhaps things wouldn't have gotten so crazy today. But unfortunately, this was not the case.
And let me ask y'all a question. Do anywhere in the Bible, where my Bible people at right now, do anywhere in the Bible specifically speaks? Can you think of a verse that will specifically speak against secret societies? Any specific verse? Let me hear some verses. I didn't see anybody pull up no verses.
There were many Masons in the church, and they had no problem speaking on Jesus, calling on his name, singing hymns, giving tithes, etc., which is pretty much the fruit that the Black churches look for when identifying a brother or sister in the faith.
So on behalf of myself and the St. Paul Church family, we would like to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Father, as we depart from this place, but never from your presence, we pray that the communion of the Holy Spirit will rest, rule, and abide with each.
Though these Masons have taken oaths and pledges and have done rituals that completely contradicts the scriptures that they say they believe in. If you're looking for somebody to just say Jesus and say they believe in him and sing songs, you can be deceived. In the South, initially slaves were not allowed to hold any religious service on their own. Religious services were held either by some member of the master's household or in secret. They did this to control what they knew or remembered from their past generations. When slaves did become allowed to hold independent religious services, this became their first taste of freedom and independent thought, except the false seeds were already planted in them by this time. The church really served as a guide for moral conduct and control for Blacks, not actually preparing the bride for the true Messiah.
And let me just stop one second right here. And when we talk about Freemasonry, you know, some of them guys went on to form some of what's known as the Divine Nine or the Eastern Star, all of that other stuff. So when I'm asking y'all for scriptures, I'm saying not only Prince Hall, the OES, John G. Jones, irregular, Prince Hall, The Divine Nine too. Every Alpha, Delta, AKA. I'm talking fraternities and sororities, everything at the same time. Can you pledge? Can you be involved in that and bring a curse on the church? Bring a curse on yourself. Not be led by the Spirit and hold position within the church. Is it a spiritual disease?
The seeds of deep loyalty to the church, not God, but the church, were sown very early. Folk songs and Negro spirituals were the method by which the slaves attempted to find meaning for their lives, and at that same time escape their horrible existence.
All right, let me stop right here for a minute. Somebody said, where is the black church at in the Bible? You think that's the problem, that Prince or that the secret society split and caused the black church? Why the black church came about? Somebody said, no, I'm going to leave this up on here for a minute. We got to leave this up on it. Where is the black church at in the Bible? I might have to put the link out on that one right there. Where is the black church at in the Bible? Is it wrong to have a black church? Did they have a black church in Africa or largely culture where all the churches mixed in Africa and Syria and Jerusalem, where they all mixed people?
Simply,
Brown, you the barbershop?
their identity was wiped away from them and then reprogrammed back in with some crucial parts missing. In the late 1770s, the Black church movement began with the founding of the first African Baptist churches in South Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia. A key factor in the Christianization of Prince Hall Freemasonry was the founding of the African Methodist Episcopal AME Church in Philadelphia in 1816 by Richard Allen. This was the first national organization created by blacks. Richard Allen was a Prince Hall Freemason. He founded the AME. The AME is a Masonic church organization. And it's no coincidence that, if you remember, this is where President Obama did the eulogy and told us what the Black church really was.
The church is and always has been the center of African American life. A place to call our own in a too often hostile world. A sanctuary from so many hardships. There have been and continue to be community centers where we organize for jobs and justice. Places of scholarship and network. That's what happens in church. That's what the Black church means.
And then he sang Amazing Grace, drawing everybody in.
How sweet the sound.
Anyways, it is said that during Richard Allen's time, nearly every Black in the Philadelphia area was an African Methodist Episcopal Christian. Allen had greater influence upon Blacks of the North than any other man of his time. And of course, Prince Hall Freemasonry had a great influence on the growth and development of the AME Church. Now, it's not just the AME Church. They did infiltrate the Baptist churches as well. But the AME Church is a Masonic church. And that must be emphasized.
And that's how come I would often show y'all the video with the guy that started the Joint College of African American Bishops from Lodge 4, from that Eureka Lodge 52 in Ohio, Bishop Ellis, because Bishop Ellis was of the charismatic Pentecostal persuasion, and we are the least Pentecostals. You'll be hard pressed to find a Pentecostal that's a Freemason. But that AME church, if you want to find some Freemasons, you're gonna go in that AME church. You want to find that Divine Nine deep, you're gonna go in that AME church. And then second, in amount of people that's Prince Hall or non-Prince Hall Freemasons, you're gonna go in that Baptist church. Black and white. You're gonna go in that Baptist church. We just got to keep it now. Come on, where the man folk at? Where y'all with all that chat? Y'all got that chat for everything else? Where y'all at right now? Come on and let's talk about that right there. But now, does that mean they control the church? The Black church. People don't like that word Black church, but there's a Black church in Korea. It's a big church and it's a bunch of Koreans. You might find a white person here and there, but it's a bunch of Koreans, and you got a black church. Why do we have a black church? Why? Because some people make it sound like a black church. Why is there a black church? That's why I put the link out there. Why is it a black church? Because of sin, because of geographical locations, and most people, wherever they gather, they live naturally. Unsaved people in a Chinatown, when they gather, Haitians, little Haiti, they gather, they're going to gather around those people. And then if you're going to form a church, if you're going to have a grocery store, if you're going to have a market, it's going to be basically Mexican food because 90% of the neighborhood is Mexican. Is that how it goes? Or is it something deep as the devil? Did the devil cause the black church to come about to bring deception? You know, everybody got black folk. We the most wicked out of everybody out here.
The black church in America has always been infiltrated by Masons. So there's no coincidence how over time the faith and truth have been lost. The leaders in the black communities have always been religious figures. And from slavery until integration, all the black community had to lean on was the church. And the lodge and these bodies often met in the same facility. This is the real truth about the black American experience.
Grace and peace, brother. Let me put my headphones on. Grace and peace, man. Come to the microphone. What are your thoughts on that black? Oh boy, that's Alton. Why even? Listen, Brown. Listen, what's getting ready to happen right now, Alton? What are your thoughts on that whole subject of the black church? And why do we have a black church? Is that a sin that there's a black church? Or we shouldn't use
grace and peace.
Grace and peace.
First of all, grace and peace to everybody. You know, I think that when we have the term black church, just like what was alluded to, what you was just kind of alluding to, it's more of a cultural type thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing. I just think that when people uplift the culture more than the church part of the body of Christ, then that's when it becomes a problem. But, you know, just like what was spoken of, you know, the church was a place where people met, you know what I'm saying? Whenever things, whenever, especially like when it came to like political type movements, or, you know, it was a place where black people just knew to meet up whenever they wanted to discuss some serious things concerning the community. You know what I'm saying? So church was always kind of ingrained with our culture, you know, especially going back to the slavery days, you know what I'm saying? So I guess those traditions and that culture just kind of carried over to where the church was basically the center of our neighborhoods and our communities. So therefore, you know, we have the thing called the quote unquote black church, and it looks different from other, I guess you would say just other cultures, because, you know, that was all we had at one point, you know what I'm saying? So, and we just operated a little differently than other cultures when it came to the church or when it came to the body of Christ.
Hold on. I'm seeing a couple. Read the screen. I'm seeing a couple of things.
It says American racism split the church, in my opinion. And there's some truth to that. You know what I'm saying?
Come on, Bell. Somebody knows some of this history here. Assemblies of God, when that Pentecostal stuff jumped off, and he's Assemblies of God leadership did not want to stay under Charles Mason. We got some of this stuff. We got after Azusa. Listen, some of this stuff has to be. We got some race stuff in here. The sin of race we have in here. When them guys got the charter from Prince Hall, them white folks said the whole thing clandestine. They said, wait a minute, we got paperwork. What you talking about? Just from the Mother Lodge. They still ain't want to acknowledge them. It just was a few days ago that them white folk down there in Georgia acknowledged Prince Hall Freemasonry down there. They just had that celebration. And there's still some jurisdictions in the South that don't acknowledge white Freemasons, don't acknowledge black Freemasons as their brothers. That's been the whole thing. So racism been in the church, been in society, been in Freemason, been everywhere. This is just behavior of some people. Somebody said not the Bible, though. Racism is not in the Bible. Hold on. Go ahead, Alton. Go ahead. Maybe, hold on. Let me. Somebody said who started. What does Jonah said? What about seminary schools? We had seminary or Bible school or place where the monks could get together. We had that in Africa. We had that in Alexandria. We had that in Egypt. We had that in Lollybella. We had that. We had people studying Rick. They just monks and all that stuff. We had that, and we've been had that studying Rick, getting away by yourself, reading text, Syria. Where they found that other thing in the garbage can at? Where Tischendorf found that other thing at? Put the name of that monastery where Tischendorf found that manuscript at. They said it was in the garbage can, but that's a whole nother story. The black church isn't in the Bible. Come on, what are you saying then? You're saying the black church isn't in the Bible. Is the Korean church in the Bible? But we got Koreans. We got large congregations in Korea with all Koreans. That's not in the Bible. The white church isn't in the Bible. That's what I'm saying. When people get together, if a bunch of Cubans come over here, a bunch of Mexicans come over here, and they got a Pentecostal church jumping, it's going to be largely Mexicans. One thing I don't want, don't put that black, unless you're going to put that black thing on rebellious. That might be, that sounds like the other pastor. That's, of course, they should have stayed. They should have stayed, they black funky behinds up in that podium, up in that balcony. They should have stayed and wait for the communion crackers after the white Christians had communion, put their hands all in the cracker. They should have waited, and then they could have got served. They should have waited like they've been waiting every Sunday for the white folk to finish with the altar, and then the black folk can come and get on the altar, because that was the laws of the land. You got to obey the laws of the land, no matter those are supposed to be your brothers in Christ, and they say they obey in the Bible. I get it right now. The blacks were wrong for being in rebellion and then walking out the church and saving up their own money and buying a building and making other churches and ordaining other ministers. They should have stayed underneath the white Methodists was already giving them license to preach. They should have stayed underneath them and stayed as second-class citizens. That's how come I'm scared of all of y'all that's preaching second-class citizen doctrine anywhere in that book. I'm scared of you black folk. I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. I'm scared of you black folk. Any second class, come on, that's who that might be, Brown. Come on, Alton. What are your thoughts on that? You like James White and them? Come on, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the brain.
If you were there in Philly with Richard Allen and them, you'd have stayed under them good method. You'd have stayed under them and just waited and been patient and let patience have her perfect work, or you'd have got ignorant like some. Because there's some folk like, man, enough of this, man. We've been coming here. They was working. They paying their tithes to the folk. But they second class citizens. Should you go ahead and obey the law of the land? And if there was segregation, if that's what the white people wanted, because you heard the other brother said, he said Rosa Parks was in rebellion. Who said Rosa Parks was Eastern Star? Maybe that rebellious spirit on them, because in the AME Church, there's some black folk that's been rebellious, and I can't even say Prince Hall, because he constantly try to put paperwork in with the Senate and the court. He constantly try to fight for rights. Even y'all don't want us around, y'all put some money to the side and he was just saying freed black children. Educate them, just to educate them, freed black adults. It'll be a better society. Then he turned around and was like, all right, back to Africa. He saw that wasn't working, but he kept trying to work within the confines of the law. Come on, you can't play these folks. That's how come some people say when you start dealing with that Bible, some people say that Bible is a good docile tool. But they don't like when people rebel and people buck and then people turn around and want to vote. They say you can vote. They say all men are created equal. Now you sneaking your black behind in there trying to make these people say, do what you say the book, do what the laws say, and you're trying to stand on the law. You're rebellious. You should just accept whatever your condition is. And people, the other pastor gave us scriptures. What kind of slave you'd have been out? So let's go back in our minds. Let's go back in our minds, because I thank God. God know when everybody should have been born, because I'm telling y'all right now, I'm not the best. I'm not the best slave in the world. But I'm ignorant. I admit it. I'm ignorant. What about you, Alton?
And I'm going to be honest with you, man. I don't know how I would have reacted, you know what I'm saying, during those times. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because somebody can look at us 100 years from now and say, man, I can't believe that y'all was paying taxes to the government. You know what I'm saying? We don't pay taxes no more, man. If I would have lived back in them days, I wouldn't have paid no tax. I would have did X, Y, and Z. I mean, a lot of times we don't know what we would have done in certain situations. So usually in conversations like that, I try to stay away from. I don't try to make any judgments to say that if I was back in those days, if I was on a bus with Rosa Parks, I would have done this, I would have done that. back in the civil rights movement, I would have done X, Y, and Z. You know, all I know is that, you know, God is sovereign, and he has, you know what I'm saying, he has me living in today, and he has blessed me to understand his word to where I can know how to act and how to react to certain things based on, you know, what is written in the book today. You know what I'm saying?
Is it biblical? Is it biblical to ask? Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question right now, because I'm going to go you a few good words. Is it biblical to ask for a raise on your job, or should you shut your Christian mouth and do good, and the raise is going to come? You don't have to ask for you out of order for asking for a raise. We just say,
well, the Bible does, you know, does kind of allude to, you know, instructing an employer to pay the wages that is due. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that there's no problem with asking for a raise. You know what I'm saying? You know, but I'm not going to sit back and say that it's a biblical thing or something that is unbiblical. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's been times to where, you know, I've asked for a pay increase. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, I actually read my handbook. So whatever job I'm at, if they say that, hey, you know, we do reviews, you know, once a year for a pay increase, I mean, I'm going to take advantage of that, you know?
And if anybody else don't, you're going to hold on. What you said, Joseph was a carpenter. That means Freemasonry is biblical? Jay, that means Freemasonry is biblical because you said Joseph was a carpenter? And he said, mic drop, like he just said, so boy, y'all scared us right now. I'm good on being in the religion with my captors. That's the real up next. I told y'all yesterday, up next and the chat, them two right there. Good. I got my good eye. I got my good eye on them two right there. What would you say to that? And up next, read the Bible. You read the Bible of the captors. What do you say to that? Go ahead.
I was going to say that, you know, the Bible wasn't given to us by the captors. You know what I'm saying? It was something that was given to us by God, and it was around way before, you know, African, the transatlantic slave trade. You know what I'm saying, of Africans. So I mean, you know, you got about a good roughly 1,400 years. You know what I'm saying, before the transatlantic slave trade, that, you know, we got scriptures that date back to the 1st century. So. What you mean? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, I guess what up next was alluding to, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, that, you know, the reason why we have the Bible is because the captors had given it to us. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, what I'm saying is that, you know, we've already had God's word way before that. So,
no, but that's the thing. But remember, up next, Israel. So he said he had the Bible, but Christianity. He beef. These beef ain't, a lot of folk ain't got no beef. Alton, you've been on this channel long enough. You got 12, 13,000 on you got a lot of, you've been putting videos out for a long time, Alton. These folk ain't got beef with the Bible. They love the Bible and they love God. They don't love Christianity. They done separated Christianity from the Bible out, and that's the beef that they got. So that's why I say they're totally different from the conscious community or somebody else. Conscious community, talking about the white man, the captors, John Henry Clark. How can you and the captors have the same God? Throw the whole book away. Conscious community saying, no, them Israelites saying something different. They say the book is ours, throw Christianity away and keep the book. So now, can you have the book apart from Christianity? Now, this where it gets, come on, Brown, you already know this where it get ignorant right here. Can you have the book apart from Christianity? If you just throw the word Christian, well, you'll make up next to them feel a little better. But you ain't finna do that. Tell us why. Tell us why.
Well, first of all, they got to define what they mean by Christianity. And this is why we have to, you know, correct them of what we mean by Christianity. You know what I'm saying? Christianity, what we say Christianity is the following and the practices of what Christ has commanded us.
I hate super jam. Go ahead. What you said?
So you know,
you see Sister Lewis, you agree? I think y'all are saying y'all along the same line. She said you can't separate Christ from. Woo, that's heavy right there. Even though the word Christian came around at Acts 11:26, you can't. You agree with that, Alton? You can't separate Christ from Christianity because folk fighting like, I ain't gonna lie, folk fighting tooth and nail. That's what they're attempting to do. They say it's possible to do it, and what they're gonna always show you almost all the time, what they're gonna do is they're gonna they're going to bring up that slave ship Jesus. They're going to bring up police brutality. They're going to bring up them slave masters were supposed to be Christians. They can't see it as being bootleg for some reason. And Freemasonry, they'll say, no, they clandestine, they ain't recognized, and all of this stuff had to do with who recognized. They ain't recognized and this and that. They heretical, and, you know, because the Catholic Church called the Freemasons, everybody heretical. And, you know, like, this is how we do. And they turned around and they said this and they said that. Can you really separate? Or they broad brushing, and they're using broad brushing as a tool to evangelize, trying to make it sound like all Christianity love and all Christianity accepted. Because that's a revisionist history. If they're teaching all Christianity love and all Christianity accepted slavery, and all Christians had slaves, and no Christians spoke against it, no Christians fought against it, and because Christians were speaking against it, they had to go and get Talmud, they had to go and get other stuff, they had to come up with that curse of Ham, they had to come up with certain things, because white folk was upset and said, wait a minute, this ain't Bible as good Christians. So they ain't gonna tell that part of the history. That's how come the interpreters and priests and everybody and so-called scientists, anthropologists had to come with, oh, they beneath us. They're not really human. They're subhuman. 3/5, and God cursed them. That's why their skins are dark, and they're naturally, this is the position God wants them, and they had to argue it because so many people was beefing. Come on, Alton. Let me see what Bruce's talking about right here. Brother Berean, the brother from Truth is not, he's not a Hebrew Israelite. He calls himself a believer in truth, although he uses the Father and Son's true name. Yeah, I thought he was Israel. People plug me into, let me say, he has awakened to the fact that the Negroes are Judah. So how he ain't Israel if he, wait a minute. No, Bruce went off for work. Let me put a link out here. Maybe, you know, it's hard to understand it in the thing. Bruce might have to sneak off for a minute if you at work. Sneak and call us, bro. Sneak and jump on for a second. Go ahead, Alton.
Yeah, go ahead and give us some of that sneaky doctrine. You know what
I'm saying? Sneaky doctrine. Hey, read homegirl right here. Up next. That's a complete untruth. Christianity, Christ-like followers, fruit come and don't unnecessarily what's she saying here? Don't unnecessarily be complicated.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. I thought he was. Yes, I thought he was. I was going to say, if he's Seventh-day Adventist, because it's hard to find some believers researching and filming documentary and you know, like that's what I'm saying, cutting and pasting videos and having people talk and clipping this and clipping that. And man, listen, as soon as I get that down pack, I'm gonna be doing the same thing he doing here. Somebody said broom closet doctrine. Y'all ill. Hold on, you back in the hotel?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to talk about them Seventh-day Adventists, boy. They gonna talk about them Freemasons and they gonna talk about them Catholics. Those are the two folks that's always on their radar.
Always on their radar. But the Adventists, why don't talk about Adventists?
You said what now?
Why don't they talk about the Adventists?
Who? Who are you talking about? The Masons?
Yeah.
This is why we have seen so many of our leaders come out from the church. The Reverend Al Sharpton, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Calvin Butts, the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr., father of the civil rights leader, Jr., all Prince Hall Freemasons, all of them. I've done a lot of digging to confirm Michael King, I use his real name, if he was a Freemason or not, but I have not been able to confirm.
I didn't even know that was his real name.
An endorsement of him. That's just a part of him, not confirmed or not known. But he had many affiliations because his father was one and he spoke in many Freemason lodges.
Let me ask you a question about the people he just named. Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, what's the other one down in Harlem in the city, the other past he just mentioned, and Dr. King. How do you look at them as a Christian, as being Christian preachers?
Well, you know, like I said,
be careful. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real careful because I know that I'm gonna summon dispensational Tim in a minute if I go.
Bro, he said it already.
If I go to Wilder too hard, he gonna come on here. He gonna check.
You know he listening.
Oh yeah. But no, and I'll be careful with it. You know what I'm saying? But when I do look at people like Jesse Jackson and Martin Luther King, they did some really great things for the Black community. I mean, nobody can deny that. But again, when we go back and we check their doctrine, what they believe about the Bible and who they believe that Christ was, and their affiliations like Freemasonry, that's why I'm careful on calling these particular men brothers in the faith, because Freemasonry goes against, just like some of the things that you've been bringing out about Freemasonry. And the thing is that I don't.
Somebody said, "Yo, this what Alta trying to say? You trying to say they're the ops?"
Well, the Bible calls them the ops. You know what I'm saying? So I got around to 66.
Go ahead, keep going. You done said it now. You done said it now. Go ahead. So when people want to fight for civil rights and black power and call themselves a Bible believer, all of a sudden they thinking like a Freemason. All of a sudden the Freemasons has been in the church putting in this work, because these are the leaders in the whole black community have been putting that work in. Now you good thumpers want to speak against them, and you benefiting off of some. Remember, they let out the civil rights. Now y'all want to put y'all mouth on them, talking about they got another spirit. Oh, you got the microphone now.
Nah, but the thing is that we've even seen in the Bible where the Lord has moved people to do good things, especially for for the people of Israel, like King Cyrus, right? But the Bible doesn't say that Cyrus was saved, or he started wearing fringes and he became an Israelite. But God can use anyone to do anything that is going to benefit his flock. You know what I'm saying? Even if it is the ops. You know what I'm saying? So when I do see things like the civil rights movement, and I do see some of the people that were involved, and when we do check their doctrine and what they believed about Christ, and it is off, I don't look at the civil rights movement as being something that, the people that God used per se are Christians or followers or obedient to his word. I believe that God used those things. So therefore, people like you and I could benefit from that. You know what I'm saying? Those in the kingdom could benefit from it. Not just saying that just because somebody has done something good and, like that means that they're believers, or we can just go ahead and just kind of, allow them to straddle the fence and just kind of be like, well, they did some good things and they did call themselves a Christian. Let's just turn a blind eye to that. But no, we still got to hold them to the same standard that we would, anybody who, is atheist, or anybody who's a part of a cult or anything like that. So. This guy says those folks are our brothers. Yeah, I would highly disagree. And I think this guy is an Israelite anyway, and I think that he's been off on a lot of scriptures and doctrine anyway. He was the same guy that was on last Friday, when you had that crazy Israelite guy on here, and he was talking about the dude was talking good. This that same guy. So yeah, I ain't gonna give no credit to what this dude is saying. I think you muted Berean.
Oh, I'm sorry. You think a lot of the black church is being controlled by ungodly men or people with other agendas that practice other religious Freemasons, mystics, and occultists? Do you think they control a lot of the church, Alton, the black church?
They could be, but I don't think you might. I think you might have to mute yourself. I'm getting a bad echo.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, they could be. But at the end of the day, God is sovereign. You know what I'm saying? There is still a remnant that God has saved from himself. So I'm not going to say every black church is being controlled by these particular guys. But I will say that there are probably a lot that are. And I mean, what this guy is bringing out in the video that you just showed, I mean, the evidence is irrefutable. You know what I'm saying?
All right, let me throw some of this up here right quick.
Really don't see, because you can explain it. In every degree, Masonry has illusions that deals in other things. Symbolism is deep. Every degree has symbolism in it. But I don't know when we're in public and we're greeting someone who we may recognize as a Mason, we greet them in such a way to when the public see it, it is an illusion, because they have no idea why we greet that person that way, who's a complete stranger. So even ourselves deal in magic and illusion, something that you see, but you really don't see because you can't explain it. In every degree, Masonry has illusions that deals in other things. Symbolism is deep. Every degree has symbolism in it. But I don't know how many of us ever take our time just to flip through the pages of our different appending bodies just to peep at those symbolisms or those symbols which represent that particular degree.
And read Joe comment down there, Alton, and tell me what you think. I'm playing 5 minutes of this video because I want to see if this is why you're saying what you say.
They're unique. Call in at 619-985-1184. That's the call-in number tonight. If you choose to do so, we certainly welcome you to call in. This show is open to all call-ins. If you feel that you want to be part of the show and you want to call in and have a conversation, certainly you're welcome to do so. And this is what sets us apart from any other Masonic show or any other Masonic group that may be on YouTube, because we allow individuals to call in, be it whether you're a Mason or not, sister or brother. This is an open forum. We love to have you to call in and talk about Freemasonry. And who knows, one day you may consider yourself to be knocking at the door, be it a sister or a brother who are interested in becoming part of this great fraternal order in Freemasonry. So we welcome you to come on in and join us this evening. Tonight we're talking about the ancient Masons, or the magi, who specialize in acquiring knowledge, just like we do today. If you are a Mason, you should be specializing in acquiring knowledge. That is something you should be definitely doing. Hello and welcome.
What's going on, my brother? Peace.
Peace to you. What's happening? What you want to add to the show tonight? I appreciate you calling in. Who am I speaking with right now?
Brother X, man. You know what I mean?
Okay, brother X, talk to me.
You know, I pop in once in a while, but
I'm yes, brother X. Okay.
You know who,
Yeah. I got you. Go ahead, talk to me.
Yeah, so I had to call in, man, and say what up. You know what I mean? Because you're definitely talking my language tonight.
All right. All right.
So yeah, I just wanted to let people know, man, definitely that and the brother asked me this, man. You know, we were talking. He said, "Yo, man," I asked the brother in my lodge. I said, "Listen, is what we do in lodge, is that magic? Is that ceremonial magic?" And the brother told him, no, it's not, man. It's just, it's just ritual, whatever. He's like, oh, okay, whatever. But
listen good, Alton.
he asked me and a few other brothers who were on the esoteric tip, and he's like, at that time, he was just coming up onto it. He was studying. He was like, hey, yo, this seemed like it's ceremonial magic, isn't it? And I was like, it is. You know what I mean? And to confirm that, there's a book that I can tell brothers and sisters who are interested, they can get. It came out, I believe, last year. And I got it myself. It's by a brother named Jamie Paul Lamb, and the book is called Myth, Magic, and Masonry.
I've heard of that. I hadn't gotten it, but I've definitely heard of it.
Good book.
Okay.
I definitely recommend it.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this. I just seen a brother post. His name is Brian Donnell. He says, so why do we greet and acknowledge our brothers in this way? If we do well, we understand the significance. Oh, okay. I thought he had a question. All right, go ahead, bro. Talk to me, brother X.
Yeah, well, most definitely. I was just explaining how the book that the brother put out. It's in 3 sections, I believe. He breaks it into, and he talks about the astrological correspondences to Masonry, and he breaks that down beautifully. Talk about the royal arch, how the arches represent certain zodiacs. Breaks it down, and his sources for that, he gives sources too for his information, which I love.
So clearly they're talking as above, so below doctrine, zodiac. They got no closed canon Freemasons work with an open canon. He started talking about ceremonial magic. Now we getting into Aleister Crowley. Now we getting into Enochian magic. He say this thing ain't regular Freemasonry. He say it goes back. He said this thing goes back past, and they argue that listen, we don't even need to listen to them white folk with Freemasonry because Freemasonry is an African thing. So no white people can give you to the occult sciences, to these teachings. No white people can give you a charter to a spiritual system that's been on the planet. Let's listen to some more what they teaching. Open canon out there.
One of his main sources is a book that I have as well that I've gifted a brother of mine that I love dearly out there in California. He cites the book, I believe it's called Masonic Astronomy and Stellar Theology. I believe that's what it's called.
Okay.
If I'm getting it mixed up, then I'm
Masonic Astronomy and Stellar Theology. Remember them people were dealing with Kemet and pyramidology, and the other book I was talking to y'all how people were promoting that stuff. Those were occultists too of the secret society, and they believed the magi did it. We talked about the gospel in the stars.
But that's what it is. I believe I have it on PDF, so if you want, I can send that to you as well.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to let me know, send it to you, just hit me up, and we can talk like that. But yeah, definitely that book. The next part, he breaks it into how magic is being practiced in the lodge. And he brings about the fact. Damn, I want to talk about some stuff, but I can't.
Well, you know what? You know what, Brother X? You can talk about it through the language, universal symbols of Freemasonry.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to say it's not going to go over some of them. Hey, I won't say it won't do that. But for those of us who are in tune and who are enlightened, should be able to follow you. And even if we can't, we should be able to listen with an attentive ear to find out exactly where you're coming from, and then take your information and go research it for ourselves.
All right, bet. So for those of any of us who are on the line or into the occult, into the esoteric sciences, this is right up the alley. You know what I'm talking about. So there's something that's called an egregore in the occult. Okay, now an egregore is something like a thought form, which is a collective group of people, right? And they all have a collective group of thoughts that merge together. The energy attracts to each other, to itself, because it's the same energy. You feel me? And what they're doing is they're feeding this energy. You know, it's like some people say, "Oh man, I seen the face of Jesus in the clouds or in a tree or something like the Virgin Mary or something."
Right.
Well, that's because that's the collective consciousness of that particular environment that is projected, that's manifesting what is being projected.
Hold on just a second, bro. I'm gonna add somebody else to the call, okay?
Alton, what are your thoughts? I gotta put my headphones on. You hearing it? You hearing it? Somebody's studying the esoteric, and you don't even need to join the lodge for that because they teach this all on YouTube now.
Yeah, it's so many things, but you know what? It's like some of the things that I do that I'm hearing from this particular guy. Like I've heard this from people, like women who claim to be witches and guys who claim to be warlocks and stuff like that. It just all, just like you said before, it seemed like it's all coming from the same spirit, then you got the Christ consciousness and all of this other stuff. So it all just seems like it's just pulling from the same pot. You know what I'm saying? And I haven't studied as deep in the Freemasonry as you have, but yeah, there are some things that I have studied about it, and like I said, it just seemed like it's a remix of different belief systems. You know what I'm saying? Definitely,
and the more degrees the more degree work, the more they bring in all type of ancient stuff. A lot of it is built on the Bible. And let me tell y'all, for anybody that's confused, unless you go with the theory from Mackey and them that it goes back to Adam and Cain and Enoch had this thing right here. Freemasonry is built off of the building of Solomon's temple in the Bible. The Bible is older than the craft. Cook, Honeywell, y'all want to go back to 1700, 1717, 1439? Y'all want to go back to whatever? The Bible is older than the craft. Who disagree with that? Now somebody gonna say, look how the king, look what foot he started off with. That's the foot we started off with in Kemet. Because you know a lot of people argue that Freemasonry is in the Metu Netta in Egypt. I'm gonna wait till let me see if somebody go there right now.
Has manifested and brought confusion and rebellion towards the Most High. There is probably no other branch of Freemasonry in the world so closely interwoven with the history of one race and one country as the Prince Hall Masonic Order. We all know the history that on July 4th, 1776, the leaders of this country issued a Declaration of Independence stating, 1, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with natural and inalienable rights, which no man or government can bestow or take away. 2, that to secure these rights, men create civil communities and civil authorities who derive their just power from the consent of the governed. 3, that members of the community are colleagues, not subjects, and that legitimate government consists in the communion of equal laws applied equally. Black slaves, to their detriment, actually fell for and believed that this declaration also applied to them, and then rushed into action and began to organize the first phase of the Black struggle to freedom. For many that really do not understand the full extent of their influence, it will probably surprise you that most of the Black heroes that we hear of today were Prince Hall Masons, like Philadelphia Freemason Benjamin Banneker, an accomplished mathematician and scientist who invented the clock, or W.E.B. Du Bois, another notable Freemason who was one of the founders of the NAACP.
Alton, if we get rid of Freemasonry, we ain't hardly got nobody right now in Black history. They ain't. If we get rid of the Freemasons and the Alphas and the AKA the Divine Nine, what history we got?
Man,
like we got the King North Guard, they devils. But then the good white. Let me shut up. Come on, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Come on. Oh, let's play a few more people. W.E.B. He was nobody. He ain't do nothing. Benjamin Banneker, he was nobody. These people ain't nobody compared to the kingdom. They nobody.
Or Booker T. Washington.
You cut this off right now.
Now we in trouble.
Man,
now we in
black
trouble.
folk like that.
Oh, they good. Now we in trouble.
Another notable Freemason who was an American educator, author, orator, and advisor to multiple presidents of the United States. He was the dominant leader in the African American community and of the contemporary Black elite. These men and many more Freemasons. What it seems like is that if they had prominence in the 19th and 20th century, they held some tie with Freemasonry. And these men and many more, because of their integration with the Masonic system, wanted to be looked at as fair and equal. Imagine and then understand. They were sharing the secrets with the same group of men that once enslaved them. They became empowered and wanted rights and freedoms, and their push for integration swept amongst the Black community. There would be no civil rights movement without Prince Hall Freemasonry. And maybe your first instinct wants to be, well, at least they did something good for us. As a believer and putting the Most High, Yahuwah, and your faith in Him, if you put Him in priority over our racial struggles, if you look how they have used civil rights against us, tying things that are an abomination to the Most High along with our civil rights,
LGBTQ rights, Black Lives Matter,
while also using it to push tolerance for a blending of all world religions, most, I'm sure, would love to go back in time and tell them, don't do it. Well, that's how I feel.
Now, a lot of the beef came in yesterday because Thunder played the video with IUIC in the Baptist Church. Outside of the AME Church, Baptist, not everybody, but there's been I don't want to pull up the videos and get some of my denominational people offended, but I can show y'all some Baptist corner. I can show y'all some Baptists and Freemasons working that work, that degree work, they doing their thing, celebrating the OES all up in the Baptist Church. Full regalia on doing their thing, and part of the problem is the Baptist dudes brought IUIC in and let them blow on the microphone, and they didn't even challenge him. It wasn't a debate. Then the pastor get up there and said, we need a part 2. That's part of the beef. And Thunder was Thunder was like, well, what's the problem and this and that. And I'm like, listen. And in the meantime, whilst that was going on, I got church folk hitting my jack talking about, well, you brought Israelites on your platform. Why can't they bring the Israelites in the church and give them the microphone? Boy, I was tight. I was done. I wanted to shut it down after that. I wanted to talk bad language after that. I said, you think what I do on this and what the pastor's supposed to do is the same thing? Type of one if y'all think IUIC need to be up in the Baptist church, charismatic Pentecostal church, so they can share their thoughts with the congregation. Y'all type of one if you are a Christian and you go to a Christian church and you think that's right and exact. I'm like, boy, I'm scared of these folk. So now Alton, so I told him, I said, listen, y'all don't understand when Thunder come in here, Thunder don't play with them. Listen, anybody that's really Prince Hall, that's really in it, they tell everybody research for yourself. So you remember the past we talked about the Mormon church and Thunder jump on and Thunder want to bring up the Book of Mormon and read some of it. It says, anything wrong with this? He want to bring up the Book of Enoch. Is anything wrong with this? Because they got an open canon. So everything is everything to them. Doctrine is secondary. Like a lot of these people that's out here nation building, doctrine is secondary. It's about the black man. It's about building Israel. It's about, Farrakhan will say, listen, I'm Muslim and I'm Israel. It's about nation building. It's about the original man, the white folk running amok, and the doctrines of Christ got to be secondary. But for others, like ourselves, doctrine is everything. So I can't, if I was a pastor, right, I can't bring nobody in the pulpit, because if you're called to this thing, faithful men, your job is to protect the sheep. That's when you see the bishop and the pastor them sitting there. It's that staff back there. Those are symbols. Like them folk got symbols, we got symbols. That staff is a symbol of protection and the shepherd leading the sheep. It would get them by the crook and grab them by their neck and pull them back when a sheep is going astray. What does scripture say about him leaving the 99 and going to get that other one? Grab him up if he fell into the ditch. And this is how God do it. This is how a pastor is supposed to do also, because pastors are supposed to be, they're under shepherds. And this is what they're supposed to do. What do you think? And I'm trying to explain to him, and all I can think about and others can think about is what the scriptures say. Oh, the New World Order. You can't see why we can't come together. I can't really bring up New World Order. I can't really bring up what we would call one world government, because a lot in Christianity, that's how I think that they got some of that influence, because we can get along. We can get along, New Agers, and everybody can just get along, because they don't really believe the Bible, and some of these are pastors. So they'll, we could pray with a Jehovah Witness. It's good to have a Mormon and somebody from the LGBT. Let out atheists. Let them all come together. We bring in the Indian shamans. Let's all meet in the United Nations and get together. I'm going to tell y'all something right now, Miller. These folk don't want to believe it, but Christianity is going to play a large part in this one world religion. Let Alton come to the microphone. I'm going to mute myself. Let Alton come to the microphone. I'm going to mute myself. I said Christianity, that Christianity, that progressive Christianity is going to play a large part in this one world religion, in this one world government. They're going to help usher it in, because they are part of the deception, not the whole church. But all these sleep pastors, progressivism is good. Don't worry about no virgin birth. And listen, we're not sure if he really died and rose again, literally. But in your heart, morally, if you accept it, wait a minute. Anybody to put the doctrine somewhere else. And there may be some people that will come around and be like, yo, in the name of unity, why we can't all get together? Thank you. Somebody said false Christianity. And the problem is, 99% of the charges we hear from Israelites and all of that stuff, and people saying I left Christianity, it comes from the zoo. It comes from false Christianity. All they could name is Benny Hinn. Who are they going to name? Benny Hinn, Kenneth Copeland. They're going to name, what's the other dude name with that whole thing in Atlanta with the boys? Eddie, come on, yo, people, Eddie Long and them. That's all they're going to name. All of them, they the leaders in the zoo. Them is the leaders in the zoo. And then we got atheist professors that's jumping on the set right now. And atheist professors are giving it, well, there were other books, and those books, and gospel, and the gospel of true, and the gospel of the Ebionites, and the gospel to the Hebrews, the gospel to the Egyptians. All these gospels on the same level with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Even though it's the same, because you got to watch these scholars too, because these scholars be talking out the side of their mouth. I'll show you some Bart Ehrman talking out the side of his mouth, then I'll show you some Bart Ehrman talking good on Garfield channel. It depends on the crowd how he talking. He got books for scholars, because he was following a scholar, Bruce Metzger, and then he got books for the misquoting, then he got books for the populace. He getting bread. That's how come he in that thing too. What are your thoughts, brother? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? And I've heard you make statements like distinguishing the separating something. In fact, a few years back, you were saying something about the wheat and the tear. Are they being separated now? Is doctrine separating now? Or the wheat and the tear is going to come up together until the end?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Right now, yeah, what we see, we do see that separation between the wheat and the tares. And I was just having this conversation the other day where it just seems like now, you know, that a lot of pastors and a lot of churches and a lot of people that we respected, you know, in this thing called Christianity are being exposed. You know what I'm saying? Not like somebody's just going and doing an expose on them, but, you know, they're coming out and they're saying some things that are, you know, that is not a scripture. You know what I'm saying? That we're not going to find in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Some of these dudes is being called out for scandals, for things that they've been doing in the church, you know what I'm saying, for years. And now I believe that the Lord is now shedding light on it. Even when you, because I was watching.
Be careful. You said you believe the Lord shedding light, or somebody prophesied. They said God's gonna more exposure gonna come. More exposure going to come in these next. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a separation right now. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that, you know, and I also believe that the Lord is removing His hand or His hedge of protection slowly from around this whole planet, not just this country. You know, but I believe that a lot of stuff is being exposed right now, and a lot of wheat are being sown among the tares, and you know it's going to be harvest time in a minute. But at the same time, I do see a great work of people who are coming to the faith. You know what I'm saying? Who are, you know, who the Lord is opening their eyes in this 11th hour. You got me sound like a Pentecostal right now, but in this 11th hour, but in this 11th hour, there's a lot of people who are coming to the faith, and I'm having conversations with folks. And sometimes I get these emails, man, and people don't believe it, but I'll get these emails from folks who'll be like, man, Alton, you know what I'm saying? And you got me opening up my Bible again. You know what I'm saying? I saw a video and I went to critique something, but man, you made a good point. Man, I had to go back to the Bible and I had to read it. There was even a person who actually sent me an email who apologized, and they said, man, I used to go hard in your comment section and this and that. They were just like, man, I just apologize for all of that, man, because you know what I'm saying, you was bringing out some truth, you know, and I believe that the Lord is doing something right now, you know. Narrow,
and we got to remember that Rich says narrow is the way. We be trying to put everybody on it just because someone named the name of Christ. We got them all. Everybody saved, but we got to remember that the Rich says narrow is the way. Jesus, he can't. Listen, God ain't a liar. And if he says narrow is the way and few there be that find it, that's exactly what it is. And it seems like it seems like this thing is a little more narrow than we think. But it seems like there's a I guess the only word that I can say is a lack of discernment, or these people are not true believers. Now, the problem is, how far can we go with this when we start saying, well, this may not be right, that may not be right, and this is maybe certain people that are in the church, and I don't think we've had a lot of people or pastors speaking out and critiquing things. We've had a few, but the number of people that spoke against what we would call the zoo or the prosperity have not really been a large number. As time went on and people got popular and people started making their way, and I'm gonna tell y'all, you know, a lot of people will get here, and then some people will get a break. Some people want to really make that break. There's pastors, there's ministers, not everybody, but there are a few people that get out here and they're going through the struggle. And they don't understand that the struggle is part of it, where things are going this way. But there's some people that'll catch a break. And when they say a break, that means their ministerial career will take off. Somebody will see them. Like I know homegirl, somebody saw her, and then somebody was playing her, and then the bishop wife saw her. Next thing you know, she on stage, and she in the Coliseum on stage. Next thing you know, next winter, she in that thing. Next thing you know, she done married somebody. Now they on a whole nother level, living on some 10,000 a month. Now they on a whole, and there's a lot of people, they got their quote unquote break from jumping on TV and a Daystar and 700 Club. And when they get on there, some people like they switch up. A lot of people say, I remember that person before they got on TV and before they was popular. And they were preaching good. Boy, they get around them people, they start preaching that other stuff and doing and saying some things that doesn't seem too biblical. Let's just put it that way. And many have gone astray or shipwrecked themselves in ministries because of things like that. Do you think they were right from the beginning? You think sometimes people can mess up, or you think people get popularity and people get money, and money just is extension or shows who you are?
Yeah, and actually, I'm looking at what Terry Pope, actually not Terry Pope, SUIL, Sister United in Love. Yeah, TD Jakes definitely was one of them. Back in the day, if you pick up, if you watch some of his stuff back when he had the box fade, man, you know,
he was pretty popular. You type of want to hear if y'all think TD Jakes, because I don't really, to be honest, I know it may sound crazy to y'all. And I know he been like, I mean, man, boy, listen, they do be having some offerings, but I don't really look at TD Jakes like a prosperity preacher. You look at TD Jakes like a Creflo Dollar. You look at him on the same level as a Creflo Dollar or Kenneth Copeland.
I think he kind of comes from that same, he's kind of cut from that same cloth.
You think money did that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. And you know, but and see, you've been in church culture and you've been around that longer than I've been around. So you know how it is when some of these dudes is you know, putting that bread up. You know, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember who. I think it was G. Craig Lewis. I was listening to him one time, and he was saying that some pastor or somebody, they invited him to come and speak. And he was just like, he came to the when he got to the airport, man, he was like, man, they had an Escalade, man, they had big bodyguards, big brolic dudes. They was just like,
yeah. What's the name of it? But that's my thing. The Baptist church, now that's where I get the Baptist people. I can't be mad at them. They're one thing, but to be honest, in the charismatic movement, the money is different. The Pentecostal charismatic movement, they don't know figures like the AME Church, the Baptist Church, and all of that stuff. The charismatic Pentecostals, their honorariums, they're giving their love gifts and stuff like that. That's on a whole different level of payment. That some people would argue that's where the thing comes in. But when it comes to the reason I look at it differently is like Jakes, I look at it more like maybe he switched from that good fire and brimstone preaching to what a few people are doing, to motivational speaking, because has had different streams of income. So people don't know that Jakes, he's a wise guy. He was getting money. He killed it. He built that that mansion he in right now. He built that not off of TBN selling prayer shows and begging for money and $1,000. He built that off of that Woman Thou Art Loose, which was a Sunday school lesson. He remixed it till the whole movie and everything came out. He killed it. He kept hitting it on the remix, and he had multiple streams. He was doing other things. As soon as he got a few dollars, he started getting into movies and doing other stuff to get money. Same thing, Joel Osteen, he a whole different thing. I don't know what Alton thoughts are on Joel Osteen, but he bragged. Joel Osteen bragged. I think he said to take $1. He don't take nothing from the church. But if you got so many millions of followers and the church is paying for airtime, all you gotta say is, I wrote a book. I wrote a book on losing weight. Once you got a following of a few million people, you can write a book on anything. My dream last night, people can buy the book. So you don't have to bleed the people on TBN for money and oils and doing this and scamming and splitting the money with them and all of this stuff and praying and prophesying for money. You don't have to do that. So I think he's more like a motivational speaker. I think that's a little bit different. And he got a following, and I can't lie, his book sales are a problem. And I'm gonna tell y'all another thing. Conferences, before that COVID, when anytime them people having a conference, we having a this and that, you can don't think money ain't flowing when Memphis is meeting. Them folk talking to them bishops and promising, listen, you're going to get the presidential suite. We sending because why? Because if the bishops say, listen, 100,000 people coming to town, Marriott, all the McDonald's and the steakhouse is going to do 100,000 people coming to town. That's bread. That's bread, and people get blessed from that.
Man, I remember when he came to Atlanta. This was pre-COVID. I don't know if it was the woman because my wife went to that back in the day.
No, it could have been one of them. He had a few of them down there. I tell you, they gave homegirl keys to the city. My man and them drove down there in mad cars. Crazy.
Man, they shut Atlanta down. I can't remember what year that was. Man, you couldn't even go downtown by the Phillips Arena and all of that stuff.
Shut it down.
They had the red carpet out there. They had celebrities showing up. Man, you couldn't even get close to downtown. So it was a real big thing. You know what I'm saying?
So it's bread and the stuff in that. So, but the thing is, as people get popular, as that message, some people say the gospel message would never be popular like that, but black people are into church, they're into Christianity, and because of that, especially with that other thing, when you connect money, and people have done that, when you connect money to teaching, to prayer, to prophesying, and when you connect money to sowing and a blessing, everybody's always going through something. If I'm shaky, I'm gonna grab the mic. Somebody right now, your kid is your child is acting up and you feel like you're at the end of your rope. Of course, 150 of y'all in here, somebody kid is acting up. These kids are crazy. But when you start giving general words, and people are like, oh, that's me, oh, Berea, and I throw the cash app up there, then people feel like, listen, and then you connect the blessing with the sowing. This is where kind of the game's coming a little bit out, and some people been doing some stuff, and it's not impossible. They have made merchandise of people. And people with those, and then, we would go to the Book of Kings, and the widow, she gave her last. And Elijah came, and the sister had nothing. And she said, we're going to heat this in. And we start connecting things with that. That makes people feel some type of way. Now, will God bless you for doing this work? Absolutely so. Will He sustain you? Absolutely so. Absolutely so. There's nothing to doubt about that. But have people took that and gone another way? Yeah, they've done it. And that's not only an our thing. I see Indian gurus, the same thing, Rolls Royces. Dalai Lama got a Rolex. He's the head of these people are CEOs. But now the question do come in, if you're someone like your man down there, Eddie Long, if you come to a ministry and a ministry got 300, you can say what you want. These people are connected to personalities. If you get to the ministry and the ministry got 300 people, 8 years later, you got 30,000 people. You did that. So now these people, they're not calling them. So now these people branding it. This is TD Jakes Ministries. This is Berean TV Ministries, and this is me doing this. The ministry is this, the church is this, but I'm a brand. The people are branding themselves. I'm a ministry in and of itself. My name carries weight. And then you got people who are trying to dog TD Jakes out. Yo, come down here to my church. I got 5 bands for you. He was like, man, he called. He's like, yo, I can't even come around. I'm filling stadiums. His honorarium, if his honorarium is 10 bands, he get a stadium. He do 2 nights. He got 250. What do you need 10 for? So pastors are trying to pimp him or other pastors. We gonna get something. We gonna get a big church, and I'm gonna bring 5 other pastors, and we gonna come together. We gonna all get together, have an offering, and give it to you. And we're going to split the offering and all this. So why he got to even come? Now, somebody's name carries the weight. Now, when somebody's popular like that, are you going to go to Olstein that's going to cut you a check for 17 bands for 14.5? Because when you're that side, you're going to cut a check. You don't do like some of them churches. We're going to split the offering in 60-40. I'm bringing the trustee. I'm bringing someone to count the money. We're going to bust the money down. No, ain't going to be none of that. Be like, listen, you come through with your honorarium. We got you a hotel limo, presidential suite. We giving you 12 bands. Can you come in and pray and give us 45 minutes and prophesy? Do we know whatever you're gifted, and they call you and just do whatever you do as a gift? That's a whole different thing right there. That's a whole different thing. Now, would you follow what the Lord say? Maybe the Lord tell you go to that church over there. That neighborhood needs you up. They only got 800 members over there, and all they can give you is $1,200. They're gonna feed you, take you out. You're gonna be in a hotel. There ain't no limousine, a regular old black Uber coming for you, and they're gonna give you $1,500. Can the Lord tell you to go over there, or you can't even hear the Lord because 14,000 is over there? And a limousine in the presidential suite is over there, and you're gifted. and you can sing, and you can preach or prophesy, do whatever you do. Now, what are you going to do, Alton? Maybe you can be swayed. Maybe you can be swayed in a way that might be tempting to you.
And,
Maybe money may not be the thing. Go ahead.
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm glad that I'm a small YouTuber and I don't have like this huge influence where people are, you know, asking me to come and speak at their churches and stuff like that. Because yeah, I've even watched a couple of YouTubers, you know what I'm saying, who started off, you know what I'm saying, making some pretty solid content, but now they done kind of, you know, swayed to the side a little bit because, you know, they getting guest appearances and all of that. And, you know, and I'm just glad that the Lord has not put me in that position to where, you know, if I do see the bread, to where I may be like, well, you know, I am doing the Lord's work, and you know, I am I am supposed to be compensated, you know, because I'm doing the work for the Lord, you know.
Everybody, you agree that everybody can't get the same amount of money?
Nah, I don't think so. But at the same time, I think that when it does come to the gospel, you know, we have to be focused on getting the word out. You know what I'm saying?
And the spirit of Christ. And the spirit of Christ.
Exactly. And you know, the way, because I've even had people you know, like who's invited me to, like, you know, do like some not guest speaking, but to be a part of like certain panels and stuff, and they just like you know, hey man, we'll break you off a little of this and a little of that. And I'm like, man, I'll just do it for free. You know what I'm saying? I just want to, you know, preach the gospel. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, back to what you were saying about how much money that these guys are making and how much influence that they have. Another aspect that people don't understand is how much influence that they have politically. You know, Hillary Clinton showed up to my grandmother's church down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
You see that?
When she was running against Trump. You know what I'm saying? And they shut down the whole city block. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's not just the money; it's the political influence that they have as well.
And people would be offended when they see, well, he could call the White House, oh, I saw him, he's a sellout. I saw Billy Graham with the president. That automatically means he Illuminati. And people listen, maybe God opened up doors or allow some things to happen in a direction for this and that. But that's a whole nother thing. Did Jesus have political influence? Should ministers seek to have political influence, especially when you want to make changes in the community? You want to do things to affect the community. We're talking about Prince Hall and secret societies being in control of the Black church. Have they been influential? Have they helped us? Or did people, by certain things that they've done and on prostituting, I don't even want to use that word, the pulpit, or playing with the gift. If some people would say, if you're called to ministry and to preach the gospel of Christ, and you are called, you're separate. That's where the word holy comes from. You're kadesh. You're separate. You're a separate vessel. There's certain plates and stuff mom and them only bring out on Thanksgiving. You ain't finna just be kicking it and carrying on, running amok in the backyard and bringing out her good china. You just don't do it. It's for special occasions. So if God has you set apart, should you be involved in political things, in different things? Or can God have different people in the body? Can God be well pleased with a Al Sharpton? I don't want to say, because everybody, y'all done read some of Martin Luther King's paperwork, and y'all want to say he ain't saved, he ain't believe in the virgin birth. But can God use some other people with influence with the police department to make changes? Or that's not the pastor's job to press the police to release videos when someone gets shot? Let's put it that way. Or to work hand in hand with different organizations, police, civilian complaint review board, to release videos to fight and protest, to stand up with someone's mother when someone was killed without a hammer, shot 40 times. That's not the church's job to come and speak. I'm talking about in our community, because we deal with certain things in our community that may be a little different. And should we demonize those people that are Bible believers and leaders that choose to go and do that because they feel God put it on their heart, and it's their job to do? Because you got believers out here be like, God love justice. What type of Christians are y'all? God love justice. You done lost your mind? Of course Jesus would speak up on this. Someone being hurt, someone being abused. Come on, Allison.
Yeah, I agree with that. But again, the gospel has to be the primary it has to be the center of the message. You know what I'm saying? It can't be. It can't just be, well, let's just, stand up and let's just stand for justice and we'll just lock arms with all of these other folks like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter wrote in their manifesto that their whole thing was to tear down the nuclear family, which is much needed in the Black community. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be discerning. We can't just go and just jump into our emotions and just go, well, a Black man just got shot. Let's just, dive head first into this, and then we'll work out the gospel and we'll work out the Bible and all of that stuff later. No, we have to be discerning. So we have to make sure that the gospel message is at the center of whatever we do.
And guidelines and qualifications for those that are preachers, for those that are leaders. Look what Honesty's saying. Good to see you. Says Trump's spiritual advisor was Paula White, who was under T.D. Jakes. Next thing I know, she trying to colonize angels, and Marcus Rogers talking about Trump is the president. Make it make sense. And those are our leaders. Those are our leaders. But people already, but it didn't fool Alton and other people when Paula White was supposed to be dating what's her name in Paris, holding hands, and you ain't even we're gonna leave that alone. Qualifications. So people going back to now, qualifications and lifestyle, just because you gifted and you rock out in a private jet and your honorarium 10, 20 bands don't mean that you're a prophet of the Lord. Especially when you on this crazy divorce, remarry, flip, and all of this stuff, talking about what you got in your bread and you praying over money. Because remember, I got one thing I can talk about them camps, but them camps beat some of y'all to a pulp. A lot of y'all black folk wasn't talking about no tithes. Till them camps beat y'all so hard. Y'all had to say, well, maybe, because people start asking, well, is tithe money? Is tithe this and that? Well, maybe just love offering and this and that. But y'all went for years with people bashing y'all about that tithe till y'all had to break down and confess. Say, folk got to beat y'all. Folk got to abuse y'all for y'all to say, well, maybe you're right. Maybe we did, because a lot of y'all out and you don't want to admit that the church did wrong in anything, and it's public knowledge out here. So people looking at us like are y'all not seeing it? You dedicated, you go to church 3 times a week, but you can't see that something's not right. And this is where some beef would come in. What do you say to that? I'm going back to the video. Go, folk getting ready to get mad. Every time you go on, the church folk want. Matter of fact, I'm gonna start turning my jack off. They want to get mad because I made that statement about the Baptist folk yesterday. But at the same time, we got to know that there are good, influential, powerful people that's out here, that's in ministry, that's regular people. And I tell y'all, I don't know a few of them people. They know me. They know my moms and them and all of that other stuff, and my family and all of them stuff and this and that. And they'll call somebody, yo, tell them, do that. And somebody text me, yo, that may not be right, and what you said, and you're at this place right now, but you could be, who knows, you may get right back into ministry, and you don't want to burn no bridges by saying certain things about people. And man, listen. It is what it is. All right, let me play some of this right here, and let's see what other leaders, maybe what we call a good leader and who we look up to, should not. Now, let me let somebody else say that.
Anyways, like I was saying, our heroes of the past were Masons and had other purposes that were never revealed in the open, as this is what a Mason has: a duty to spread the light. So continuing on, the slavery to freedom age from 1800 to 1876 was crucial to the journey of Black America. And again, Prince Hall Freemasonry and Prince Hall Freemasons served at the core of the struggle. The founding of many universities and mutual aid societies for Blacks, financial institutions, the gaining of political power, the Underground Railroad, the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation, all were directly influenced by Freemasons.
Wait a minute, yo. I hate yo. I can't deal with y'all. Yo, look at this. D-Ray said, talk about the Baptist church all you want, but I never received a bounce check from them. Man, I hate that right there. I can't lie. I can't lie. Well, no, one thing I can say, I've heard people have had, man, I told y'all I come from that Pentecost. I done seen it all. Then people come and preaching, and I'm starting off with $1,000. 1,500. I'm starting off with a 1,500. They hold it, they check up. They had an offering and all of this stuff, man. By the time they get their honorary and slide away, that whole check done bounce. Or they get up to the office after church when they changing their stuff, get ready to walk up back to the car. They be like, give me back my check. Oh, God, I'm done. I hate this stuff. I can't lie. Some other people, there's different people known for different stuff.
I got a question before you start that video.
Baptists are good. Yeah, Baptist people are pretty good with their, with their dealings and stuff because this organization is structured. So are my AME people too. All right, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, because I'm watching this video from this guy, and it seems like that I don't know. It just seems like basically what he's saying in this video is that just because a lot of things were done, like the abolishment of slavery. I won't say the abolishment of slavery, but like the whole civil rights thing, and basically that. It seems like that he's coming from a position of maybe we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater because Freemasons have led the fight in a lot of these things. So I'm really trying to get his angle on this particular video.
Yes, no. To be honest, what he's saying specifically is, and that's something I said we got to bring it up. Some may argue because he's an Israelite, they're trying to argue that Freemasonry is an occult tradition, and they basically control the church. If they didn't start it with the AME, they control some denominations. They definitely control, and that's one reason because of that behavior is why some are arguing that the Spirit of God has left Christianity. And they usually point out the zoo, but they're trying to say that the Spirit of God is not really on Christianity. And he's not even arguing. He got other videos where he argue, the Christmas tree and this and that. But this coupled with that, coupled with this, coupled with that, some people are making an argument that that Christianity is not right and exact, or at least a good bit of their leadership. Now, where that could be a problem is it's hurtful because is it a slap in their face in Freemasonry and in secret societies, alphas and AKAs and deltas, seeing how much they have done for the Black community. Oh, don't worry, I got the slides with the Israelite connection too. Don't think I told you and this isn't something that just happened because of last night. I think my second or third video when I started doing YouTube, I said I was going to show the Masonic connection everywhere because I've been studying this for so many years. There's a heavy influence with Freemasonry and everything from the Israelite camp to the Moor Science Temple. We might as well call this thing for what it is, but the heaviest is the earliest is the Christian church. And the Black church, the AME Church, and that's the heaviest influence. Most people in America that are Black are considered Christians. Later on, they gave Farrakhan's a Freemason. Elijah Muhammad was influenced by it, but the large portion of it is Christianity. Now, is Freemasonry as popular among Europeans as it is in the Black church, or is it more popular because these were the leaders in civil rights movement? These were leaders in Underground Railroad and abolitionist movement, Jim Crow, and all of that stuff. Are they more prominent because of that? What are your thoughts on it? That's where the beef comes in right there. Let me see what they say. I'm gonna put some of these comments up whilst I let this brother. I think he got about 15 more minutes in this right here. There you go.
Fast forwarding a little more in time, a subject Black people love to discuss is Black Wall Street. Now, don't get me wrong. What happened to them was a tragedy. But you should know that Prince Hall Freemasonry was strong there. You cannot leave them out of the conversation when speaking of the Black experience in America.
Yeah, when we deal with Black Wall Street, it was a lot of men that remember Prince Hall, that whole thing with free Black men that was fighting. Blacks been, matter of fact, you can find Blacks all over. Shout out to Bishop Joey. I remember going out to went down there to speak and I was with my man and he took us out to some dinner and we, I got to meet him and talk about some stuff. That's the guy in Ohio, R.A. Vernon, that's his pastor. And he was sharing some stuff. He's sharp, brother, sharp. and he was sharing some stuff about blacks and how you can find blacks in everybody's military all over the world. Blacks really fought, and when they said that they were hitting the white people that later on testified, they said they blowing from the steeple and they're blowing from up there in the church. These were guys that came home from the war. They had hammers in the church. It was like, these people come to tear the place up. We might as well go out. And they banged out and one of the highest places was up in the steeple of the church. So they went up in there, you know, they were trained in the military and they went out. And, you know, Europeans, you know, they were shocked at the resistance. They were hurt, but that just made them go more crazy. And, you know, it is what it is. So there was definitely a heavy Prince Saul influence there. But once again, are we going to shoot down Black Wall Street and everything? Are we going to shoot down everything right now? Because some people have had an esoteric or an occultic connection to Freemasonry. Now y'all saying everything is the devil, the devil, the devil, the devil, the devil? I'm just saying, fair use.
In his book, A History of Freemasonry Among Negroes in America, Harry E. Davis records that Black Freemasonry during the slavery to freedom age took a very high interest in three institutions: the church, slavery, and education. He writes, in 1807, there were about 1,500 colored people in Washington, 1/3 of whom were free. A small group of these free men established a school and later became the founders of the first Masonic Lodge. They also organized a beneficial society under whose benevolent guise they operated a station of the Underground Railroad. In 1823, a few of these men were initiated in the Colored Lodges of Philadelphia, and in 1825, they were chartered into Social Lodge Number 7. The Masons used the civil rights agenda with great skill to tie Black Americans in with a cause, and they used their organizations to promote integration within society, and then also to squash those that were advocating withdrawal, people like Marcus Garvey. Through the early 1800s, slavery, the Civil War, Reconstruction, and post-Reconstruction Southern white supremacy, Prince Hall Freemasonry spread and solidified. By 1900, there was either a Prince Hall Grand Lodge or a chartered lodge operating in nearly every northern and southern state, and some western territories and states.
Do me a favor, Alton. What would you say to this right here?
She says, no, just get the garbage out of the church. Well, you know, like I said before, there's already a separation between the wheat and the tares. And the only person who is going
you think you said there's already one?
What?
I thought they were going to come up together till the end.
Well, oh, yeah. And I believe that there is a separation going on right now. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, this is not something that us as humans can do. You know what I'm saying? Even if right now, if a whole bunch of people came up to me and say, hey, Alton, you need to start a church. And I went and I started a church. It is not going to be right and exact. It's not going to be pure and holy. You know,
you think garbage is everywhere.
Right, because I'm a man and I'm filled with sin. Well, I'm not. Well, yeah, I'm a sinful man, basically.
Oh, you got to be careful because they'll cut that. They'll take that and say, he made it. He cut
that. He said he's a sinful man.
Yeah.
No, but no. The only person that can change people's hearts is Christ. You know, and what we have to do is that we have to continue to stay in His Word. So, you know, we can sit back and we can go, well, you know, let's just try to do this and try to do that to get the garbage and the trash out of the church. But Jesus has already said that His church, that the gates of hell will not prevail against His church. So, you know what I'm saying? So no matter what is going on in the church, Christ's true church is not, the gates of hell is not going to prevail against it. You know,
amen. Good point. But I want to hold on. I want to show you something else. Right. No, I don't. I think he was just influenced doing this. Look at this, though. Look at this. You see that? You see the statement? I'm put two up here for you. You see that one?
The falling away comes first.
What does the falling away look like to you when you hear that? That's a good question. Not only Alton, that's a good question. What does the falling away look like to you, Gia? When you talk about here falling away, what comes to mind when you hear that?
Yeah, well, a lot of people, basically what we see now. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people saying, "Oh, I used to be Christian, I used to be this, and I used to be that, and I'm leaving the church because they haven't given us the information," and all of these excuses as into why people are low-key rejecting Christ are not coming out and saying it. But you know, when people are jumping off into these other movements, claiming to still be a part of the faith and claiming that they reject the church and they don't want to fellowship because of the things that they've seen other folks do. That's what I see that the falling away is about. You know, people just coming up with excuses to fall away from the faith, to reject Christ, you know, and falling away into myths.
Yeah, I agree. Let me see. All right, keep an eye on these comments. Let me play them on this.
Yeah,
By 1910, Prince Hall Freemasonry had created a national Grand Lodge. The state Grand Lodges were meeting annually, and work was being done to unify all of their rituals. During the post-Reconstruction era, the Black Masonic Lodge, along with the church and colleges, played a huge role in the subculture that went unheard and unseen by white America. Again, this was often happening through the same men who were operating the lodges, leading in the churches and colleges, and other fraternal groups. They created a Black community life that revolved around meetings, along with social and political maneuvering for all the members that belonged. They focused on integration and did this through a focus on economic.
I got to stop right here, Alton. You see that, right?
What are you talking about?
The remnant of God's people leaving the church building. Type of one if y'all agree with that. What are your thoughts on that? The remnant of God's people are leaving the church building. I got to park right here for a minute. Type of one if you agree with that. The remnant of God's people are leaving the church building to go where? The house churches? To not go to church? Where they leaving it to go? Thank you, Sister Wofield. Yes, the church has its flaws, but a lot of groups get together and operate in the same way. Come on, cash app requests for donations, collective money, pledges, etc. Come on here. Where you ain't gonna find it at? Where you ain't gonna find it at? Who ain't leading one of these movements? But it's crazy when you really into religion, when you in the movement, you don't think your leader. Nobody in the Nation of Islam think Farrakhan a millionaire. Nobody in none of them camps don't think them camps leaders and generals and holy captains and all of that got plenty of bread. They don't think that. They don't think that. And this is just how it is. People, you know, and then you have the people. Yes, well, God has blessed, and that's the thing that scares people with the prosperity thing. So people buy into it. He wanted a $65 million jet. If I want to trust God for 60, they clapping. And people's buying into, yes, you're supposed to be blessed as the leader. You're supposed to have this. You're supposed to have that. And, you know, that's a whole nother thing when I say these preachers are branding themselves. And you can say what you want. If Creflo can shut the town down, fill up every hotel, buy out every burger, every state, and every steaks and hamburgers and drinks in every restaurant for a 10 square mile radius, that's a strong person. He's stronger than the average Joe Blow person. So you can't say, Creflo, come to my church and I'm going to give you $1,000. The math ain't working out. This is just how it is when people have made quote unquote names for themselves. But what are your thoughts on that?
You talking about this particular comment right here?
Yeah, you know, or that one, or the one before. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, Murray is right. You know, yeah, we got flaws, but at the same time, you know, we're not going to sit back and play games like these Israelite camps and these other movements out here. These folks on social media around here getting cash apps and donations and all that stuff. These folks ain't even putting this money back in the community.
Come on. And we've been putting money in the community. But the thing is, Alton, is if the church is God, Jesus said, I'm talking about sweet Jesus. I ain't talking about that. I don't know who them other folk talking about. I'm talking about sweet Jesus said, upon this rock, I will build my church. So he said he going to do something. So we ain't talking about Israel right there. Israel is involved in it, but he getting ready to do something different. He said, upon this rock, I will build my church, on a statement of who I am. When Peter made it, he said, upon this rock, I will build my church. If God has ordained, y'all hear me? That's the argument we all have. If God has ordained a church, if God has ordained an assembly on this planet, no matter what they do, He'll correct them. Come on, Israel. I'm talking about God's covenanted people now when I say that. God's covenanted. If God got a covenanted people, David played himself. Samuel played himself. But if you're God's people, see that it's a whole different thing. If you're God's people, of course, I don't expect you to be holy. He don't expect you to be holy because he understands that all have sinned. He understands something. That's how come I love John. John said, if any of you do sin, you got an advocate with the Father. So people would look at us and be like, oh, I heard you cuss. Oh, that guy, he cheated on his wife. Oh, this pastor, that's all right. David cheated. He ain't constantly do it. But David messed up, and people gonna mess up. You can say what you want. That David and Bathsheba, that Samson and Delilah thing was a whole bunch of mess. And you got some guys out here, got some hots. You can say what you want. Them, like my man said, them ashy Israelite sisters is one thing, but with them other sisters coming around all oiled up with them tattoos all thick and everything, he couldn't help himself with Delilah. And some people got that in them right now. Can't help themselves. You try once in a while, but somebody done messed up. And the thing is that heart, when David was finally confronted, because we'll try to cover some stuff up. When he was finally confronted, he broke down. He said, against thee and thee only have I sinned. So the difference, and even when we're talking about sheep and pigs love that. They love that wallowing in that mud. They love that. A sheep will mess up. Somebody in here struggling, going through some stuff right now, and you're broken on the inside because you're going through it. Because you're going through some stuff. You're a sheep. You don't want to do it. That's the nature. The heart is the thing. The heart is the thing. Are you just doing it? That's how come we got to even be careful when people get in and fall into certain things. I can't really say who's not his, because those that are his have messed up. God, see that one thing I've noticed, one thing I can tell you, Alton, I don't know about how y'all do it, but these church folk down there on my side, church folk will get rid of you with the quickness. I'm glad God ain't church folk. I'm glad God ain't church folk. Man, God, because why is that? Because Rick says he that has begun a good thing in you. Long as you really, when you prayed that prayer, long as you really believed it in your heart, God knew you was he knew you was gonna go home and be crazy. He knew when you cried on the altar, you accept him. You believe the message, you love him, and you accept it. He know 2 months later you was gonna be crazy. He knew that. See that one thing about him, said, I don't think God is learning. One thing about him is that he knew who you was before he even called you, but he still called you. That's why I love him.
Amen.
That's why I love him. He church folk can act the fool all they want to, but as long as his spirit is still abiding, as long as he's still encouraging me, saying A, B, C, and D, listen, that's all right. Even though my heart might condemn me, listen, there's a spirit that is at work as long as his spirit is at work. That's how David prayed, Lord, don't take the Holy Spirit. I don't care what these folks saying out here. He didn't care about his career. He didn't care about who he was. Lord, the Holy Spirit, that means that relationship. The relationship is everything. Forget what everybody else saying. The relationship you have with him. And to be honest, I'm not quick to run around telling church folk everything. Church folk will take your business and go running amok with it. Oh, I got one up on him right now. I got one. And this is how come, especially in certain things, in certain areas, God will be using you and you'll be struggling at the same time and people will be looking up at you. And Paul says, I prayed and prayed, but because of the great revelation, because of how God was using him, he said a messenger. He said, something is going on right here. I didn't know what it was. He said, something is going on. So we could be going through some stuff. Some things can be happening, but as long as you have that relationship and you're praying with him, he knows you're going to mess up. Most of the time, God forgives and he throws out that sin from the far, from the east, from the west. And a lot of times we beating ourselves up. We beating ourselves up, and the enemy love to do that. So when we do get in the house of the Lord, we can't worship because we're ashamed. That ain't God. That's how come a lot of times people don't know it. I'm going to give y'all a key right here. Your praise is everything. I don't care what you're going through. Your praise is everything. You fall down. The long as the praise don't go nowhere. God ain't quick to get rid of you church folk, though. That's how come the religion scared me. I'm a little scared with this stuff. Alton, sometimes you church people can scare you. Have church people ever scared you, man? Sometimes you church people scare me.
Yeah, shoot. I mean, I even had to start changing my position on stuff. You know what I'm saying? Walking around here and, looking at people sideways because of a person's lack of knowledge or some of the things that they were still kind of practicing while they were still calling themselves believers. And I had to remember the scriptures when Paul said, "But such were some of you." You know, and I was at a point, I didn't just have this eureka moment and I just had it right. I mean, I had to change the way I read the scriptures. I had to change my doctrine, what I believe about Jesus and all of that. I mean, it's a process, you know, and I don't think that I'm ever going to know everything and learn everything about the Bible. But one thing I can say is that I've been filled with the Holy Spirit to know exactly who Christ is and what he's done for me. And that's the message that I want to.
Amen. Amen. That's how the doctrine is important.
Yeah,
and understanding justification and how we're redeemed, and justification and sanctification, understanding it's a process. And to be honest, a lot of people, we may not even be hating on other people, but a lot of times people don't grow as fast as we want them to grow. You know, a lot of us, we run around here with badges. We the spiritual poets. We want people to grow at our pace, believe at our pace, know, and if they don't, if they be like, man, I feel some type of way. You ain't that. Now, you don't know where God done brought them from to say they ain't right and exact. The mere fact that you at this place right here, they know where they came from. It's a blessing. And you looking like, you ain't moving fast enough. You talking about you've been in this thing 7 years. You ain't moving. You ain't growing fast enough for me. And sometimes we do that. You're going to wrap it up. I'm going to play some more of this, and then you're going to give us your thoughts on this whole thing and how we should move forward as God's people. What should we? And then another thing too, I'm gonna ask you about the in light of talking about the AME Church, and you know, we can beat up on them because that was started by guys that were Prince Hall and just titles in general, donations and titles in general. When I stop at the rest of this video, I'm gonna ask you how you think God feels about not just Alex and the rest of y'all. How y'all think God really feels about titles and denominations? Do you think he looks at that, or he's looking at the heart of people the world over, not the titles that you fly by, the denominations that you fly by, the flags that you're flying, should I say? Fair use.
Strength by establishing retail stores, banks, hotels, newspapers, and insurance companies. And believe me, as we move closer into modern times, you'll see a lot more. All of these groups served as mutual aid and support organizations and allow Blacks to exist in small worlds of their own. And along with the church, these groups produced community leaders and social circles. They gave the Black communities sense of unity and independence. To be clear, that was really for those that were in the inside. And this is one way we saw the separation of classes within the Black community. We just never really are told why. We are told that it was about education. They would tell us that getting a good education would bring us success in this country. And this is what we were programmed to believe. But success in this country was actually more about the organization we were attached to and who we actually knew. So there was always a big glass ceiling over us unless certain doors were opened by these fraternal organizations. So because of these fraternal organizations, education and economic growth ushered in the visible Black bourgeois class. The class of Blacks that distinguished themselves from the other Blacks because they were wealthy and connected, the boule. These pocket of Prince Hall Masons adopted the bourgeois attitude and selected their members based on their class in society, and some with the paper bag test. These lodges, societies, and fraternal groups helped solidify the Black middle and elite classes that are still identifiable today. The spirit of the separation made it necessary to copy the white universities' Greek letter fraternities and sororities, and to create their own. Many of the founding members of the early Greek letter fraternities were also Freemasons. And of course, most of those fraternities are still in existence today. They are like recruiting tools for the underground, but we have to really discuss this at a later time. I can really go on in great detail with this history. They were in everything. Now, if you allow them to tell you, it's because of them why we have the freedoms and the acceptance in our society today. And that's really true. Our way of life would not be what it is today without Prince Hall Freemasonry. Again, that's really true. The real sad part is that we have so many people tied to this system that actually want to thank them. And again, this is how people are recruited. But if you actually take the blindfold off and look at what is happening to our world and how far we have moved from the Most High, you can definitely see a great influence that needs to be highlighted and then We do not want to assimilate with them, but pray for them and remove ourselves from their influences. When I look at the world through open eyes, not programmed by the matrix to see what they want me to see, I see men and women who sold out their God for acceptance in a demonic system that has an ultimate goal of enslavement. You must understand Freemasonry to understand just how sinister this all is. But in the end, even if you do not fully understand Freemasonry, you should understand that the world is not as gray as many would like to think, and things are really black and white. Most of what we know today has been influenced by secret societies that have been moving the world in a direction actually fulfilling Bible prophecy. And this is why the Bible tells us, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of Elohim abides forever. That's 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. Or also, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And again, this is why Yeshua says, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve Elohim and Mammon. Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. I can go on, but you get the picture. If you have watched my before, there should be an understanding of us not being of this world. And in reviewing history, what happened clearly is that after our bondage, instead of clinging to the Most High and abiding fully in His Word, we held on to men that directed our association and relationship with the Most High, according to worldly thoughts and principles. They aligned us to agendas that serve the world and not our Father. Over time, we were so influenced by the world that the church is not able to even understand and identify with the nature of who we truly are and who we actually serve. Our identity was stolen and then hijacked by infiltrators who lost their soul to gain the world. And we have been following these men for centuries now. And we are now coming into the final fulfillment of all that was being done behind the scenes for all these decades.
Look at this question. Look at this statement. We're out to that. Look at this here. We got a park right here. How can brothers, you hear me right, Alton?
Yeah, I'm here.
How can brothers like myself, listen, Just Save, how can brothers like myself get to know God better without going to the church? Church right now is not healthy for black males right now. I'll let you go first. Not every church. We got to be careful with that. But and especially in light of this COVID, I think this is an excellent question right here. Come on, what are your thoughts on this, brother?
Right, and just like you said, you can't broad brush the entire church. You can't say that is all of the churches or any place that or any body of believers that call themselves a church. You know what I'm saying? And I think that there's a little bit of a presupposition there. But to kind of answer his question, the church is very important, a Bible-based church. And yeah, right now it's tough to find a good Bible-based fellowship, because just like you said earlier, narrow is the way and few will find it. So if people are looking for to be able to just walk into a church and on any given Sunday, that's going to be teaching the Bible. That's not going to have the foolishness and the mess and all of that stuff in it. It's good luck. For the way that I found my fellowship was through prayer. You know what I'm saying? Crying out to the Lord. I knew it wasn't something that I was going to be able to do on my own. Because I had my own presuppositions and I had my own doctrines and ideologies and theologies that I wanted to hold on to, but I wanted to be in a fellowship. I yearned for a fellowship that would be able to that would be able to correct me if I'm wrong and to show me in scripture. And when I started fellowshipping with the brothers and sisters at my current fellowship, They showed me certain things that was wrong, stuff that I had held on to, and I was just like, man, I haven't taught this all my life. But when we actually sat down and we went through the scriptures, it was tough. You know what I'm saying? It was tough because there was some things that I just had to kind of, and it was through a lot of prayer, supplication, to where I had to keep going back to the scripture, and I had to ask the Lord to soften my heart to where I could be able to receive His word. So, people just want to kind of cut out this whole idea of, well, I just want to be able to just read the Bible for myself and get an understanding. No, you're going to have to be accountable to a group of believers, you know what I'm saying? A group of Bible sound biblical teachers, you know what I'm saying? And, we all need that accountability. People see me on YouTube and stuff, but this ain't just my end all be all. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm accountable to elders, you know what I'm saying? Men who I can call into and say, hey, brother, man, I'm struggling with this. Hey, I need some help. Man, I found this verse, or I saw this video, and this, I'm kind of struggling with this right now. Can you help me to, figure this stuff out? Can you help me to get a better understanding? And, and it just feels so great when you are a part of believers, who can who can hold you accountable. Even again, you just got to be able to have that humility, and you got to be willing to submit yourself to the Holy Spirit to lead you in the right direction of good sound fellowship.
Amen. I agree with that 100%. And I think for some reason, I believe God allowed this up because there is a shaking dealing with the church. When we start dealing with brothers, you see what Sister Gia said right here. I'm going to leave it up. I hate to do it, but I got to do it. We put people through too many hoops just to freely love them, expose error, and still loving one another. They seem to be mutually exclusive these days. I think that's important. I think one of the main things is to know that fellowship's important with God. Fellowship don't have to be a church. It can be out. Like I used to meet with some officers and stuff, correction officers and all of this stuff. I didn't know they was 12 till in restaurants and have Bible study and stuff like that. I think God, if you really pray, I think God that'll open up some doors and He'll connect you with some people, and you have to be open to those connections. I think another thing that I often tell people, like I got homeboys, I got homegirls, I got people, they be like, yo, they move out of town, they jump and they blow with the job, or they find a nice apartment. Yo, I can't believe you could lease this whole house $3,000. I'm out. And they leave the city. Then when they get down there, they like, yo, I ain't even got no church. The church wasn't even on their mind. Not even looking for church in the area in the beginning. That wasn't on their mind. So I tell people, I said, listen, it's good. Like people go on a few dates. It's okay to shop some churches. Let me go visit this church. I saw this church in line, or ask people recommendations. Back in the days, folk being on block, yo, who got that good? Who got that stuff? And, people would do stuff like that. Yo, where good church is at? Ask somebody, you know somebody, and God will connect you like that. But it's good to sometimes just go, yo, let me take a chance to get dressed and go down here. Let me go down here. I drove by a building right there. Let me go down there and see what them people talking about. And I think that's important. A lot of people don't want to shop church. Well, I went there, it was all right, but it wasn't really me. And sometimes you got to go 6, 7, 8 different places. It's a little different now with COVID, but I don't think people really put forth that effort like we would do if we looking for some Jordans or something. Man, I ain't finding Foot Locker. I got to go to another one. And you parked in the parking lot, you looking at another store, and we really go out for other stuff. And sometimes we don't go out that hard, really, really hard, when we're looking for something to feed our spirits, and that's important. Are we going to pray with you about that? God has fellowships online. God will knit people's hearts together. People will come and they'll have they'll go around and be like, yo, and they'll check out some videos and stuff like that and start having fellowship and prayer with people online. More people are getting involved in Zoom and doing stuff like that. My man, Ambassador Everett. So, I got to pause you. I think he's on. He said he's on right now. But honestly, I got to go over there and see what they're talking about. He did tell me that yesterday. And we're going to set up more stuff like that. Him, myself, I think he said he's going to set some things up with a couple of ministers. We're going to work on that this week because people need. I was doing it specifically for teachings and other stuff, but there's some stuff that people need, and we're gonna, we're trying to pray and see if we can step in that role in that way and kind of fill that, because there's a need. I'm pressed for people to have conversation, for people to learn, but there's a lot of other individuals that's hitting me and emails and stuff, and they got some need. The same thing with Ambassador and Pastor Mama and a few ministers, and we in prayer about some stuff. God, just remember us in your prayer, that God will open up some doors. Because one thing, when it comes to this, when it comes to that ministry, when it comes to building and working on our individual hearts and God's Spirit leading us, He's definitely doing something. So we got to be open to the leading of God, and we got to understand that God, no matter this zoo, we got to be. I think sometimes we forget God is sovereign. God will connect us with some people that we be thinking He ain't even ordering our steps. Next thing you know, we thinking we stumbling on it, but He done ordered all of that stuff. He knew all this stuff was going to go down, and I thank Him for that. So we got to get to the place where we're trusting the move of God more. One thing I could say, we got to take our eyes off of a lot of what these people would call church and ministry, and understand the simplicity of it. I can't believe so many people that I know, they be like, yo, well, you got to fake it till you make it. You got to, get them cufflinks. And sometimes I got to go spend the last that I got to look good. And they think it's one thing and it's a whole different thing. I'm talking ministers now. I ain't talking about regular people. I'm talking about ministers, and they thinking that I got to have this look to be before the people. And listen, just have the heart. I tell them, I was like, listen, I know I'm crazy, but I'll tell you, if I was a pastor, I'll tell you do this. They'd be like, well, how come you ain't pastor? Listen, just have that heart. And, ain't nobody worried about that. Nobody worried about what you look like. People want to do something, and there's a special need. When you have a special need, when you have a special burden, should I say, especially for brothers, we built a little different. When God made us, we built a little different. So we want to deal with information, and we love Him, but we want some things worked out. And I remember I started sharing information. I'm like, dang, I don't know what type of channel this is. Ain't nothing but men coming around. And I'm looking at the percentages, and I'm like, I don't know. Because in my mind, church was women. When you start having some good teachers, women gonna be around. Yeah, man, what we got? 12%, 8% women, but some other people like, listen, that's a blessing right there. Hard to get 30 brothers together in the room. So this is what we're trying to do here. So y'all just pray for us. After, you want to say anything in closing?
I got
what'd you say?
No, I was going to say I got a couple of things.
And I want to about specifically what secret societies of people in different groups and stuff, and how we like banging out, especially as men. I get in banging mode all the time. But God ain't thinking about no groups. God ain't thinking about this. God's thinking about the heart, a broken and contrite heart, and we got to make sure that we're relaying this Bible right. It's eisegeting, that narcissistic, we reading ourselves into the text, and then it's the exegete. I want to get to a place where we're letting the text speak for itself, that God is speaking to us. Let's make sure we know what God is saying through the word. Thank you so much, Billy Ocean. Come on, brother. You got the mic. I'm muting myself.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I do want to say is that y'all continue to pray for me as well, because I feel like that I want to do more, in the ministry, but my travel, you know what I'm saying, and all of that stuff. Like I really, really want to get more and more involved in the ministry, and just not just be here on the YouTube thing. And I know that some people have been edified by that. And I mean, I don't know, I may just have this kind of like the spirit of busybodiness, feeling like I need to do something, something more than what I'm doing now. But I ask that you guys pray that that the Lord leads me in a direction to use me, you know what I'm saying? To use all of me, Amen. For me to be prepared for that day. And then secondly, what I do want to say is that, I know we just watched this video about the Freemasons and all of the things that's been done in their name. One thing that we have to that we can't forget is that these are men, these are people who are made in the image of God. You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
And I'm not going to sit back and say that all of them folks that we saw in that video, all of them folks going to hell, and God hasn't used them to do some good things. And we got to be real. When we start looking at people like Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, you know what I'm saying, and some of these other people back in those days, being a Freemason was the thing to do. You know what I'm saying? It was a cultural thing. You know what I'm saying? So, they may not have even known any better, or they may just said, hey, listen, it is what it is. This is just how we're doing it. So I'm not going to sit back and say that none of them folks were saved. But however, I will say that the age that we live in now, nobody has an excuse to have access to this information and to try to, have that tag along with the Christian faith. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, this is why, again, it goes back to what you were saying, is that doctrine is important. You know what I'm saying? We have to get people into the scriptures. We have to get people to understand what the true gospel is. And we got to keep spreading that gospel, because it's the Holy Spirit that convicts. It's not, a whole bunch of videos that I can, put together and bring information out, or, how much I can expose this group or that group. No, it's the gospel. You know what I'm saying? We got to keep people like this in prayer. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't want to see none of those guys in hell. You know what I'm saying? But, and this is the time that we really, really need to just, start lifting more and more of our prayers up to the Lord.
Amen. Amen. Man, I forgot. And what's so crazy, I think we posted, shout out to Dunamis. Somebody posted the thing. I didn't even bring up the rest of all right, I guess we'll watch that another. What was that other video? Didn't you send me this thing right here? I forgot all about it. Did I ever even play it?
Let me see.
I started off with it, then I think I took it off the screen.
Yeah. I think Dunamis sent that.
Okay, all right, y'all. All right, no, I'll play a little bit of this. I'm not sure if you can hang out with it. I'm gonna play a little bit. I'm gonna take my headphones off though. I gotta move around a little bit. Pretty Bird be trying to escape. Pretty Bird think when I be live, Pretty Bird can just get out, bust out the cage, and then go over there underneath the bed and start flying all around acting crazy. Because Pretty Bird know I'm busy. I'm gonna play some of this right here, y'all, before we get out of here. 3 hours ain't nothing else. Hold on, brother. Or just text me if you gotta go. I'm gonna take my headphones off for a second.
Yeah, I'm gonna get off right now. I got.
All right. I appreciate you, man. Love you, bro.
Nah, man. Love you too, man.
All right, one.
Today, we are doing a video, Joseph, the architect of the first pyramid and how the pyramids were built, by Ron Wyatt. Now, the reason why I've chosen a video...
I don't know if y'all know who Ron is, but y'all just listen.
By Ron Wyatt is one of the things since starting this channel on Ancient Egypt on the Bible is I get a lot of people who come on my channel and defend Ron Wyatt. Now, we're not going to really touch on, say, the fraud aspects of what Ron Wyatt did. But we are going to look at the content of this video and analyze it. Now, Ron Wyatt was born in 1933 and he died in 1999.
Your work can feel much smoother with Monday.com WorkOS. This smooth.
And he was professionally a nurse anesthesiologist. So he has no credentials in archaeology or biblical languages or anything related to the ancient Near East. He more or less did this as a hobby and became sort of an explorer adventurer. And his list of claims of discoveries he supposedly made included Noah's Ark, the Ark of the Covenant.
Listen to all of this stuff, and remember, we talk about frauds. We talk about people that were amateur Egyptologists and trying to act like they're getting out here and they understand Egypt and the Meta. Frauds are everywhere in the church. A lot of times we want to say the spirit. Then we want to act like we have high degrees. Call me Dr. Such and such. And there's frauds in the church. There's people that will lie for Christ or to sell a manuscript or to get a site jumping. Some people say Constantine, mama, she just went and picked some spots out and said, this is the holy place. This is this is that. And visitors are going there to this day. Can you understand how much money that is? We got to be careful with all these people making claims out here. Just listen to some of this stuff, and maybe God was using him, but we got to think with our good mind.
The location of the real Mount Sinai, the location of the crossing of the Israelites in the Gulf of Aqaba, Pillars of Solomon, Noah's house and his grave. The list goes on and on. He, in the span of 10 years, when he was supposedly active as a storyteller / adventurer, his list of supposed discoveries is incredibly long. He had claimed 20 or 30 important biblical discoveries. And tonight we're going to talk about two of these: the identity of Joseph as Imhotep and how the Great Pyramids were built. Now, after Ron Wyatt's death, his widow, Mary Nell Wyatt, continued on his ministry. And when we view this video, the narrator that you're going to hear is Mary Nell. Now, whenever we talk about the Wyatts, the whole sort of question is going to be raised: did Ron Wyatt actually believe what he said? Now, I think it is clear that his widow did. His widow definitely believed what Ron said. But it's always going to be an open question as to whether Ron himself actually believed what he said was true. We do know he was a raconteur. He was a storyteller. He loved telling big stories. And he also exaggerated many of the facts of those stories. Like, for example, when he dove supposedly to see the chariot wheels at the bottom of the Red Sea, there is no way he could have been at the location he was at, diving as deep as he claimed he did in the year he said, using the equipment he had. So there are elements to much of what Ron Wyatt said that were exaggerated and downright false. And then there's no other way to cut it. Whether or not that's false because he is a charlatan or whether he was self-deluded is a historical question that we really can't answer. Now, a lot of people, when they talk to me about Ron Wyatt, especially his supporters, will say, well, Wyatt seemed so genuine and honest. And there is an aspect where a person can come off genuine, even if the data that they're giving you is factually untrue. If he was self-deluded, well, then he would believe the delusions himself and would therefore come off as sincere. On the other hand, if he was a charlatan, well, to quote Doctor Who here, a con man with a dishonest face is not going to be very successful. You're only a successful con man if you've got an honest face. So that's sort of the conundrum we're at here when we deal with Ron Wyatt, is he's telling false information with a very honest face, and people buy genuine presentations. So with that said, let's get into the video and talk about Joseph, the architect of the first pyramid, and how the pyramids were built.
If I told you that there is a tried and true method that would help you land a TEDx talk in the next 30
One of Ron Wyatt's favorite subjects
That's Mary
was
Nell
how
narrating.
the pyramids were made. His interest was increased by the fact that he learned that Imhotep was the architect of the first pyramid as well as the first to use stone columns.
That so far is true. Imhotep was the first architect of a pyramid, and he is the first person, as far as we know, to use stone columns. So that much is true. Now, it is pronounced Imhotep, not Imhotep, but that's a quibble.
In our video on
Now Imhotep was one of the you know, in the conscious community, they say Imhotep was the first recorded multi-genius. You know, he was dealing with medicine and all of that stuff, and he was also a builder. So he was one of the first multi-geniuses in recorded history. In light that he was a builder and studying the human anatomy and you know, the overflow of the Nile River, all type of stuff. And he was a great person in Egypt, and later on he was actually worshipped by some Greeks, some argue.
Joseph, you can see all the evidence which shows that Imhotep was the biblical.
Okay. Imhotep is not the biblical Joseph. Let's just get that on the plate right now. Imhotep lived around 2600 BC. Joseph lived around 1600 BC. It's a difference of 1,000 years. They're not even close. And the stela that she just showed in the background, which ascribes to Joseph a famine of 7 years, also was written during the Ptolemaic period, specifically during the reign of Ptolemy V by the priests of Khnum. And that particular stela dates to about 200 BC. So again, that testimony is 1,400 years after the events of Joseph.
Biblical Joseph.
And remember, there was some people that's running around trying to say Joseph built the pyramids to hide grain. They want to fit the Bible story in some things. And that was Ben Carson. And I guess he's gonna bring up Josephus and all of that other stuff.
Of the 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, as well as being one of the children of Jacob, whose name was changed by God to Israel. A study of the earliest civilizations shows that they were not without skilled knowledge of building. It was Ron's belief that these early civilizations were the recipients of pre-flood knowledge passed down from the family of Noah, and that knowledge was slowly lost as time progressed.
I wouldn't say it was lost as much it was obscured. Those skills just became less and less valuable over time. And in the case of, say, building pyramids out of stone, the technology used for those was still used into, say, the 1st and 2nd centuries. Part of the reason why is those technologies were used in the building of temples that continued on right into the Roman period.
Even today, we could not replicate their building of the massive pyramids.
That's not true. We could easily replicate the building of the massive pyramids. In fact, we could do it easier today. We just can't afford to. It's just too expensive. And frankly, it was really, really expensive back then.
If you're still trying to figure out how to start an online business or how to get people to actually buy from you over the internet, I have some really good news for you that I think you're going to find really encouraging.
The building of the Great Pyramid by King Khufu almost completely bankrupted the country. It took the entire financial resources of Egypt to build that pyramid. So could we build another pyramid today like this? Oh, absolutely. Sure, no problem. The technology is still known. We could still do it. And we could even do it with the methods they did it. Or we could use modern methods, but it would still be prohibitively expensive. And that's the reason we don't do it, is cost.
Yet there were a number of early civilizations which built these massive constructions. So how did they do it? It's a question that has been asked down through the ages.
Over the years, I've had quite an interest in archaeology and also ancient history, which of course has to do with archaeology. So I ran across this statement in the Greek historian's writing, his name's Herodotus, that described how these were built.
Oh boy.
And it says the method employed.
Yeah, Herodotus is not a great source. And much of what he did was influenced by Greek culture. So he's not a great source for a lot of this information.
Was to build it in steps, or as some call them, tiers or terraces. When the base was complete, the blocks for the first tier above it were lifted from ground level by contrivances made of short timbers. On this first tier, there was another, which raised the blocks a stage higher, then yet another, which raised them higher still. Each tier or story had its own set of levers, or it may be that they used the same one, which, being easy to carry, they shifted up from stage to stage as soon as its load was dropped into place.
And then...
Okay. Now, when Herodotus is talking about contrivances here, he's talking about a sort of a pulley system. This has been recently shown by Roland N. Marsh, who basically has more or less proven that they were able to lift these blocks across great vertical heights using basically two sort of poles and ropes that were essentially sort of levered to drag the stone up. So we pretty much know how they get it up higher levels now.
I was reading an archaeological magazine that told about the sunboat that they had found by the pyramid, and that they had found a lot of wooden things in there. Some of them would not fit on the boat after they got the boat completely.
That's like taking apart a watch and putting it back together and discovering you have a leftover screw.
Did you know that you can make a full-time income from YouTube without ever trying to grow your own channel?
That's that's not showing that there's an extra mechanism here. That's showing that our modern conservators aren't completely sure how to reconstruct these things. That's really all that is. I mean, when you take apart a watch and you put it back together, unless you know how that watch works and where everything belongs, it's really, really easy to omit a screw. These sunboats were more or less buried, taken apart and buried along the side of the pyramid. So modern conservators are having to reconstruct these boats, not always knowing where all the pieces fit. So the extra pieces is like having an extra screw.
Finished, they had these things left over. They didn't know what they were used for, so they put them in storage. As it turns out, those were timbers from these pyramid building machines. And then in the hieroglyphics, at Saqqara, they had some bas relief hieroglyphics that showed the...
Okay, those are not timbers. That hieroglyph there is not a part of a mechanism of a pyramid building machine. That hieroglyph is actually a throne. It's actually a throne. It's the hieroglyph set, and it basically means a throne. It's a portion of, it's a block throne, and it was a block throne that was used to symbolize the divinity and royalty. So that's what that reads. It's the setu, thrones, those three blocks, thrones put together.
Working mechanism of this machine.
Yeah, it's not a machine.
What you see here is an entrance marker to part of the tomb complex of Onias.
Unis or Wenis, but not Onias. That's not a proper reading of that name. That's the Greek reading, but Greeks kind of butcher names.
One of the third.
And one of the interesting things about Unis as well is that his pyramid was actually not made of stone, but mud brick that was covered in stone. If you look at his pyramid today, it's just a pile of rubble. You can actually go down into the burial chamber of Wenis's tomb, and you can actually see all the pyramid texts that are inscribed on the interior of his tomb. It's a great tomb to go to. Great pyramid, but it didn't actually survive time all that well.
Do y'all think that that God can just go ahead, these people, they can just feel that God is really leading them to explain some things in the Bible, or certain things should be left to the professionals in the field? We always talk about that, but he actually felt, the guy Ryan Wyatt actually felt that God was leading him to some stuff and explain some stuff. And I can't lie, so many believers love it, and they were eating up the stuff. Noah's Ark, and he's finding this, and he's finding Noah's house, and it make people feel good, and like the Bible is coming alive. But later on, a lot of professionals started mocking us because of statements like, do you think that does more harm than good? Let's put it that way.
We also have to remember, too, that the pyramid of Unis is about 300 years later than Zozer's pyramid. But Unis is coming back to this site because Saqqara has become an important cult site by the time of Unis.
Dynasty pharaohs. Now, here is a cartouche that tells us who this man was. You'll note that the cartouche is laying on its side instead of standing upright. This represents the fact that this person is dead.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
If you're an accredited investor, I have big news. In the last 12 months, I bought 5 major.
What we're talking about here is the direction of the writing. Okay. A standing versus a prone cartouche is no indication that the king is alive or dead. It's just the way you read the writing, because you're supposed to read in it in a certain direction. In that case, the line is a horizontal line, so the cartouche would have to lay on its side. So this is no indication that the king is dead.
You'll notice that the symbols inside the cartouche are still upright.
Yes, that's because of the way you read the writing. Ron Wyatt doesn't know how to read Egyptian.
These things represent one of the many deities of Egypt.
Not really. Unis is a name. Possibly the hair god, possibly, but doubtful. It's doubtful here. It seems to be more or less just a name.
Therefore, they do not die. Just the man himself dies, and these transmigrate into the next pharaoh in line.
That's an allegorical reading of the hieroglyphs. This is no different than when Joseph Smith Jr. allegorically reads the Book of Abraham.
What we have here, reading from right to left, is Onias died. We have the spade, symbolizing the fact that they buried him. Then we have the symbols of the pyramid building machines. And this all...
No. I'm going to spit up my coffee and popcorn in a moment. No. Yeah, they're upright Hoovers. They're Hoover vacuums, yes. Why not go for broke here? Got the rabbit in the front, leaves a lot of bunny balls. You need the Hoovers. That's why the Hoovers are behind the rabbit.